Well, we could still discuss it again. Ladies and gentlemen, take it for what it's worth. Here we are about to do a year in review, and we're doing the year in review off camera and forgot to go live. Well, actually, that was my fault. But hey, what are you going to do? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this week's edition of the Weekly Roundtable, the Year in Review 2023. I'm one of your co-hosts, Frank Johnson, and co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation. To my right or to left, depending on which side of the TV you're on, co-founder of the Liberty First Foundation and co-host of the show, Michael Marshall. As always, with us is Michael Vasquez, Dragon of the Southern Tier. And joining us is some guy with a shaved head by the name of Dal Grimm. You may know him from the comments section. He's a lively character who refuses to show his face, but that's okay. You can find him on a milk carton or a post office poster near you. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you this evening? Guys, how's it going?
Doing well.
Good.
Not bad.
Boy, I feel lively today. It must be some of this Liberty First Foundation Leo's Cafe coffee I'm drinking in my constitutional cup.
Ooh, look at that.
I see you're in your new studio this week.
Yes, I have graduated after a couple of years of trudging along in a 3 foot by 3 foot corner of my wife's office. I have now gotten myself a full-size armory room here in the house. And no, this is not a backdrop. This is actually my office. And in front of me is my studio with cameras, electronic stuff, all kinds of gizmos, gadgets, and everything else. And I actually look professional. And look, there's our live on air thing. So yeah, we're live and in color. Boy. All right, so let's kick it over to Dal, because Dal's here for the first time ever. Dal,
thank you.
How are you, sir? And what's your take on the news out of the NRA today?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. 2024 has started off with quite the eventful news that Wayne LaPierre has been walking away, I guess, the NRA, you could say. And he has decided to step down. And my take on it is good riddance to bad rubbish. That's the best I could say. I really was not happy with the way he was leading the NRA, and that's something that we were discussing earlier off of camera. And it, as you say, when you were mentioning the NRA swooping in and kind of taking credit for things that other people do, it sounds a lot like a certain Harvard president, wouldn't you say? It's quite gay.
Well, she I think took more than credit for other people's work. She went a little further than that. But yeah, as everybody might have known, news came out today that Wayne LaPierre penned his letter of resignation, effective I believe the 31st. He's stepping down due to quote unquote health concerns. Now
there's more to it than that.
There's more to it than that, but first we analyze what the official statement was. Is he's got some health issues he's concerned about. He's 70 plus years old, wants to spend a little bit more time with his family. He has devoted the majority of his adult life to the preservation and protection of Second Amendment rights, and at this point in his life, he needs to take a step back and devote himself to other things, namely his family. Now, it's also worth noting that a trial is about to begin in New York, where Wayne LaPierre is among one of 3 or 4 defendants who have been accused of misappropriating NRA funds for the betterment of a lavish lifestyle.
Yeah.
Now, all right, we can all speculate as to where monies go. We don't know because we don't have the list in front of us, an accountant's list. We know that in any organization, there's going to be a certain amount of mismanagement. It's always, par for the course, stuff like that. How much, we don't know, because we also have to take into consideration that this is the same district attorney that has made it a life's mission to try and destroy everything that is 1 degree to the left of center that has any political, pull any way, shape, and form. This is the same person who's got what is it now, 438,000 indictments against Donald J. Trump. That she,
I think we're closing in on 1 billion.
I think so. Yeah, this Letitia James out of New York. She's the one who's bringing these charges against Wade LaPierre and these other people. Now, the NRA is America's oldest civil rights organization.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know about the NRA's illustrious history, the NRA was formulated during the Reconstruction era after the Civil War, and its primary goal was to help and ensure that freed slaves and Black Americans were able to exercise their now constitutionally recognized rights, because remember, their rights weren't recognized before Reconstruction, so that they would be able to protect themselves against the Southerners that were lynching and burning down farms and homesteads and sharecropping establishments and everything, trying to make these people's lives, hell, even more so than what it was previous to the war. And the NRA was established for that fact. The NRA is not the old white guy establishment. If you look at what the history of the NRA is and what they stood for, the NRA is, started with a very, very honorable mission. Some people say the NRA lost their direction over the years because they've capitulated on a lot of different things. They've compromised certain rights away. They have been, not always on the side of the gun owner and more on the side of the politician posing as a gun owner. So, for every ounce of good, there's an ounce of bad that we have to take with it. And Wayne LaPierre, good, bad, or indifferent, has been the figurehead for this organization for such a long time that he's become a pariah. The NRA is kind of stagnated in a lot of the things that they do. And Wayne LaPierre is just, when you think of a gun guy, Dal said before, he goes, one of you guys has mentioned, let's put Ted Nugent in as, head of the NRA. Ted Nugent is probably the only person who's more gun guy than I am, but that's who should be, somebody of that ilk should be the head of the NRA. Somebody who's no compromise, not wearing a $4,000 suit, driving around in limousines and private jets and all the rest of that stuff like that. Well, that's that's what the image we get from Wayne LaPierre. He's not one of us. He's not the guy that I'm going to call to say, "Hey, Wayne, we're taking a ride out to the range this weekend. Do you want to come?" He'd be the last guy.
He's a corporate guy. He's a corporate guy, and the idea for him was, corporate guy can run around the corporate circles, deal with the politicians in that same kind of manner, which I mean, it was a great idea, but it was kind of like Ollie North, star power. And I think that's all. It's nice if you have it as a bonus, but the NRA was wrong when they made the focus that. The focus should be, we're Americans, we have this right, and we're going to protect it. And I don't care if they're out in what do you call them, overalls, straight off the farm off of Iowa. I could care less. It's about being effective. And, LaPierre his tenure was not known for its effectiveness. Hello, red flags in New York, which you were supposed to sue. Anyway, that's big issue. I have a big issue with that.
Well, I know that in relation to the case in New York, there was a piece of legislation that I was contacting my senator about here in New York. New York has been trying to legislate away the involvement of the NRA in the political process up here.
Not just the NRA. They were going after Gun Owners of America and every other organization that didn't have a headquarters in New York, if I remember correctly.
But the thing is that the NRA is the only gun body, like the 2A body, that is recognized by the state of New York to do things like firearms education and to do the pistol classes for your permits and stuff. You have to be NRA certified. Well, they were trying to remove that and place all of that underneath state police.
Yeah.
Right. And as far as I understand, that bill didn't go anywhere, but this case may be used in a way to try and resurrect that bill and say, hey, look, we're putting these guys on trial because they were bad people, and this reflects poorly on the NRA. We should get them out of our state entirely.
Yeah, but
I wouldn't be surprised if that was a spin.
Yeah, but that won't work. One of the reasons why the bill died in the first place, and we talked a little bit about that,
right back, guys.
because Frank has been licensed in New York as a pistol instructor, a firearm instructor. And I think you brought it up, Frank. But one of the reasons why it won't go anywhere will be lip service, and it'll be lip service for the progressives, absolutely, and they'll demonize the Republicans for saying, no, really, this is ineffective. It doesn't work. It's because the state police can't handle the responsibility. And I know it's, the left wants government involved in everything. They want them to micromanage every aspect of our lives, especially if it comes to our rights. But the state police themselves were saying at the time, they can't do this. That's why these organizations are certified in New York. That's why they do provide this service. And it is a qualified service as recognized by New York. Because if you leave it just to New York, it won't happen. Although the answer from the progressives to that was, great, then no one has a gun. And that's why it didn't go through. So they can try and bring it back. It's the same answer. State can't handle it. We can't afford it. It's not going to help people. And their answer is going to be, great, no one gets a gun then. And it's going to die.
In fact, that bill is called S-138, New York. And it actually has been refiled as of yesterday.
Yeah, they'll refile it a couple times.
About politics making strange bedfellows. The ACLU is partnered with the NRA to fight this.
Yeah.
Wow, that is strange.
Yeah. Well, it's been there's a couple of other things that progressives in New York have tried to do things to shut the NRAs down, as far as not allowing them to run ads, not allowing them to do certain things, to which the NRA has filed suit back saying, well, there's a clear-cut case of, violating the Second Amendment, and the ACLU has co-signed onto it with them. So there, kudos to the ACLU. Finally, I think this is number 2 out of the last 60 years that you may have gotten something right. But it's just like I said, make strange bedfellows. But Dal, what part of New York are you out of?
I'm out of the southern tier, so I'm in the Binghamton area. Yep.
Oh,
Broome County. Okay. Broome County region, which is just north of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, no, I'm actually in Tioga County. I work in Broome, but yeah, they for being an agricultural county, it really doesn't act like one. Yeah. Although I will say that we thankfully have somewhat more conservative, I suppose you could say, more liberty focused legislation here in Tioga County, but it's not as much as I would like. But I keep yelling at people at the meetings, and they keep tooting me out.
No, just keep going to the meetings and just keep yelling. That's all. Then eventually, somebody in the chat said the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So
right, yeah, that's why you don't stop. Even if you're the only voice in the wilderness, you need to keep talking.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes being right is a very lonely position to take.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you do it, because it is the right thing. And evil, there's a old saying, evil loves silence.
Yeah.
What is more evil, the evil that men do or the evil that men allow to be done?
All that evil needs to prevail is for good men to do nothing.
That's it.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah, I'm a cornucopia of quotes.
Yeah.
I remember the good ones.
And I want to apologize to the audience. I don't have a camera, and I also own a face for radio, so I am using an avatar instead of, being visual like everyone else here.
I've seen
Apologies
your
not
face. You're right
necessary.
there with Mike and Frank. You're just as lovely as they are.
My beard's
I
gotten
look
bigger.
way better than all of you. So nowhere near me. But you're right
Don't
there with the
apologize.
rest of them.
The last time Pete was on the show, he put his avatar up when he had his beard down to his belly button.
Yeah.
And then in between segments, he went from his avatar to a live picture with him clean shaven and scared the crap out of half the audience.
No, I can't get it at the ZZ top length, but I have quite a substantial face of fur. It's good.
I'm working on one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, for winter, you have to. Up here in the north, the great snowy north, you gotta have a full face of hair.
True.
Actually, they're talking about us getting measurable snow this weekend.
Yeah,
No,
you guys
really have
further
to have
north
one
will get it.
here.
It's what? It's winter in New York. Of course we get weather. Of course we get snow.
Yeah,
They're making a big
this
deal.
year is not. This year it stayed warm.
Yeah,
We
it's been
had a pretty good
atypically
year so
warm.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been atypically warm.
I have a friend who's up in the southern tier, and he's up in Green, New York.
Mhm.
And he posted a picture of himself ice fishing from 7 years. From today's memory from 7 years ago is him ice fishing at a crappie derby. 7 years ago, and he's 7 years ago they were standing on a foot of ice. He goes, and this year he can't even get. If he tried to mow the lawn around the grass, his mower would sink into the dirt that's so soft.
Yeah.
Well, that's global warming. No, it's called the weather.
Speaking of derbies, last week the Press and Sun Bulletin ran a story about a new piece of legislation that came out in New York that takes away prize money from outdoorsman sports.
Yeah.
So no more cash prizes for deer, like the antler prizes, no more derby prizes. Now they've taken that incentive away.
Yeah, well, that's because that's part of the 900 new laws created by New York State alone, and people can go to each state and you'll see similar numbers of laws that have been enacted. And each and every one of these things, what we're seeing is it's just finding new ways to inject government in. And the big thing that no one's noticing, because we just got the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the numbers, and everyone's saying, oh, see, the economy's fine and it's a soft landing and everything's doing great. Well, here's the thing. One,
how many of the new jobs have been government jobs?
Well, that's one of the factors, but here's another thing. How do you have a soft landing if we never had a problem? Remember, they told us from August 2022 going on, there's no recession. Everything's doing fine. So there's nothing to recover from because everything was doing well. That's what the Biden administration told you. Bidenomics was working fantastic. There was no problem. They changed the definition of recession, so there wasn't one. So how can we have a soft landing if we never fell? So obviously, total disconnect there. The BLS numbers, everyone's, oh, look, see, we had strong job growth. Yeah, but the reason why, one, we had less people working than the month before, which is bad because that was December. And we have more people not counted as part of the workforce than the month before. Well, the last several months, we went over 100 million again. And that's part of the reason why the unemployment rate stayed at 3.7%. It's actually getting worse. There's a problem. And looking at December, you're not getting, but they're going to pump this up because they're fortifying the 2024 election.
Yeah.
They're trying to make it look as good as it can just before Biden tomorrow goes to Valley Forge and compares himself to George Washington in trying to save America. That's going to happen. We'll get into that in a minute, but let's go on. Valley Forge. This is, oh my God, that's pissing me off, but let's go on.
That ties right in with the ad he just released too, and that was a bunch of BS if I ever saw it.
Well, I'll be brief. We already know what he's going to do. He's already made the. We already had a leak of the information that's been put out. Forbes, in particular, put it out, so it's a credible news source. Tomorrow, he's going to come out and say, "Orange man bad. MAGA is evil. He's fighting to save America. That's why you should vote for him." Which is all that. Whether or not you think Trump is evil, let's throw that out the window. That's a personal opinion. That's a feeling. Who cares? To say that MAGA is evil, that he's trying to protect you from the MAGA extremists, make America great extremism. Making your home great is now extreme, according to Joe Biden. And this is the reason why he wants to be reelected, because it is extreme to have your home be the best home it could possibly be. If anyone is repeating MAGA extremism, you have no idea what you are saying. You don't understand the English language, because it is the most positive statement you could possibly make. It should be a good thing. Make America great. That is a good thing. But this is the way they're trying to manipulate. And this is what the 2024 fortification is about. It's trying to manipulate people into accepting something that is abject on its face and by its definition, absolutely wrong. And then on Monday, as part of this fortification, as part of this reason to reelect Joe Biden, he's going to a black church to tell you that gun owners are evil and they're targeting black people. That's his message on Monday, which is abject, stupid on its face. Mass shootings are not about race. They're not targeting people of race, but he's going to try and make it seem like that because he hates the Second Amendment and he hates people who own firearms. This is insulting.
Is he going to remind them which ones aren't black?
I don't know if it's beyond the fact.
Here's something else that he's trying to do. Okay. So breaking. President Biden claims Jill and I attended the funerals of police officers who died as a result of January 6th.
No one died. No police officer died. No law enforcement died as a matter of January 6th. That is a fact.
I saw that.
He's out of his mind. He's such a liar. It is a fact.
That's going to be a part of his Valley Forge deal as well.
Yeah. It's on its face and in every way, it is a lie. He is not protecting America. There are 30,000 Americans that have been abandoned, thrown to the wayside under his watch on purpose. Afghanistan, Ukraine, Sudan last year, 15,000. There are, God knows how many. We believe it's about 22. Could be more, could be less. We don't know. 22 Americans are being held hostage by Hamas at this moment, being tortured and sexually abused. And Joe Biden's answer to that is tell Antony Blinken to find out how much money we have to give in humanitarian aid to Hamas. In other words, fund terrorism to get them back. That's his answer. This is how he's protecting America. 30,000 Americans that he just threw away because it's politically advantageous to him. And then he's going to lie to the American public, factually lie that police officers, not one officer died as a direct result of January 6th. That is a medical fact. And he's going to lie to American people. This is it's enraging me because it is so partisan. It is so divisive, and it is meant to weaken America. That's all it's doing. It's breaking us apart. I'm sorry, guys.
Yep.
That got me raging.
No, but you're right. But the problem is that everybody that remembers the media carrying the water of the story about police officers being harmed or dying on January 6th, the lie was already published. And what we've seen happen with the legacy media is that no matter what retractions are printed afterwards, people will always remember the lie, the initial lie. And so he can go up on stage and he can say all these things. And even though they're a bald-faced lie, people will remember that they heard about it back around January 6th when it was still a lie, but it was presented as the truth, and they will believe it's factual. It's the same kind of reinforcement that the legacy media does with lies by omission. And sometimes they'll play off each other, where they'll put these lies of omission, or they'll put blatant lies out, and then they'll print a small retraction a couple days later. But because of people's attention span, unless we continuously remind them of the lie being a lie, they're never going to even think about it being a lie. They're just going to hold that cognitive dissonance in their heads, and the two things are going to be true at the same time, but never in the same space.
Yeah.
Well, what's that that thing that they talk about where the comedian Sinbad, where people are convinced that the comedian Sinbad was in a movie where he played a genie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard
for
that
some
before.
reason, this has been going on for 20 some odd years, that people are convinced that the comedian Sinbad was in a movie where he played a genie, and he never did.
No, he was
But for
just
some
doing.
reason,
I know why people think that, because back in remember Hammer Time, the genie pants, the balloon pants that were very popular in the late 90s. Well, Sinbad was a comedian on stage.
You know, the Mandela effect. You know, these people. You tell enough. You know, well, it was Mao that said it. You know, tell the lie enough times until people believe it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what they've done. And the media has jumped on anything that they could possibly jump on, that they could use to twist and distort whatever they wanted to do. Now that I'm not a big fan of this Vivek Ramaswamy guy, but he has been calling the media out on a couple of things. And he was at one of these little town halls the other day, and somebody had mentioned something about, well, do you denounce white supremacy? And he says, I denounce hatred of all kind. And he goes, but I'm not going to answer you the way you want me to answer you. He goes, I know what you're going to do. You're going to say, if I say I denounce hatred of all times, your story's headline is going to be Vivek Ramaswamy refuses to denounce white supremacy. Even though I denounce hatred of all kinds, because I'm not jumping through your particular hoop, you're going to say, I didn't jump through the hoop you wanted me to jump through, so this is what he didn't say. Instead of saying, you know, what I did say, or something like that's what, you know, that's how they do it. Vass and I were at a political rally, I don't know, 7 years ago, 6-7 years ago. I don't remember what it was. I was doing security. Vass was over there covering it for the media, and it was for Claudia Tenney.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was shortly, well, maybe it wasn't even that long ago. I'm not sure. It was right after the deplorables comment that Hillary Clinton.
It was 2019, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was right after they did that Hillary Clinton did that deplorables comment. And Claudia Tenney decided that she was going to capitalize on that deplorables comment. And in a room with a couple of hundred people over there, she comes up onto they have like this little 12-inch high platform stand that they come up with, a little podium. It's at the Hyatt Regency in Binghamton. And they come up, and she stands up on this thing, and she stands in, and she got a microphone in her hand. And they got a little spotlight on her and stuff. And she goes, wow, I see a lot of deplorables out here today. That was her quote. I see a lot of deplorables out here. And she got a round of applause, you know, and a round of laughs.
Everyone got the joke.
Everyone got the joke, except there was a reporter there from the Press and Sun Bulletin.
Yep.
At the time that this event was going on inside, across the street, and Vass made all these people be themselves when he went out there with his camera and his microphone to go interview them. They had all of the Wall Street antic people out there, you know.
It was Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow and Indivisible New York.
Yeah, they had all of those ones out there tomorrow. Well, out there, there was only maybe 20 or 30 protesters out there. The Press and Sun, the guy, the reporter from Press and Sun, as soon as he said There's a lot of I see a lot of deplorables out here today, talking to her own audience, referring to them as deplorables because that's what Hillary Clinton called them. He gets on the phone, calls his office, and says, run with the story. Claudia Tenney just called the demonstrators outside deplorable.
Yeah.
And then misquoted her by saying, I see a lot of deplorables outside.
Yeah.
Not out there, meaning and pointing to the audience. She said outside. So now the reporter purposefully took a comment that she made and completely twisted it to have completely different miniatures. Meanwhile, Vass has got it on video. We've got the security footage of it. We contact Press and Sun Bulletin and say, listen, you're going to need to issue a retraction on this because you're a reporter and you just libeled this candidate. You just
lied to the public.
Blatantly lied. Never issued an apology, never issued a retraction, never did nothing. We contacted Claudia's campaign and said, listen, make us think about this because we have it on video. You have it on video. You have the opportunity to show how they distort everything. They didn't take the opportunity because I guess I don't know.
It feeds into it.
Right. Not as much fight in some people as you would hope there is. But this goes to the their discussion. If I say the word there out of context, it's which one is it? There's three of them.
Right. Could be any
which one is you don't know which one it is. So when Donald Trump comes out and says Mexico's not sending us their best and brightest, they're sending us their murderers, their rapists, their thieves, they're this, they're that. He's talking in the possessive. These are their, not, but the media says they are versus their. That's how the media uses the language to distort everything, so that you never know what you're having. And so unless you see it in print, hear it by your face, and get a transcript of what the hell was said, you never know what's going on. And the media is golden for that.
Yeah, they're abusing the First Amendment. They're abusing their right so that they can get their politics out, which is the corruption that we're seeing in the whole in elections for a long time now, but it's really being emphasized now for 2024 because, let's be honest, Biden needs all the help he can get. Just like he needed it to get in 2020, he needs it in 2024 even more desperately because even his own people don't want him, which is why he's trying to. Now you're hearing about the college loans again. Last time you heard about it was in 2022. Here he comes back with that because he's trying to buy those votes. He's trying to get the hostages. He's trying to pay Hamas to get the hostages back, although he doesn't want to talk about it, even though he's trying to downplay America's involvement. But America's involved in Israel, Hamas, not just because of the ally, but Americans were killed. Americans are hostages. Of course we're involved. We have to be. It's our people. And the future of our people. I mean, Iran just keeps telling us that, if you keep complaining about the American hostages, we're going to attack you. And they have in the Red Sea and in Syria and in Iraq. They're coming after us. And Biden's so weak, he can't say, look, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get the American hostages back. And you know what? I give Jimmy Carter more credit than Joe Biden. I'm old enough to remember Jimmy Carter when Iran took 400 Americans hostage for a year. Jimmy Carter, bad president as he was, he sent in Delta Force. Their plane crashed because the helicopter didn't do well in the desert, all the sand in the engine, and it crashed. He canceled it. He at least sent Delta Force. He was at least trying to get the Americans back home. He at least respected and understood that he is supposed to protect American citizens. No matter how badly he failed, he tried. Joe Biden won't even say that he's willing to protect America. I'm very adamant about that because that says a lot about where our nation is going.
Well, just before we get fact checked, real quick, it was 66 Americans that Iran held hostage, but they held them for 444 days.
Nope, I reversed it.
You reversed the numbers.
Yeah.
Your tongue crossed your eye teeth and you couldn't see what you were saying.
Exactly.
It happens from
It was 1980. I mean,
yeah, I know.
Only, 45 years ago.
Something that's part of that that stems back to the illegals coming in Iran is that recently James O'Keefe actually did an expose in the last week on groups of nonprofits that are harboring a lot of these illegals that are being contracted from federal government. They're using federal resources and they're getting governments to give them people, and they're harboring them at these facilities and then they're dispersing them throughout the country.
Mm-hmm.
This is not just the southern border. They're actually being flown in to these facilities and then they're being dispersed. Most of them are of the age of military service, and most of them are male. And a lot of them are coming from places like Iran. So,
yeah.
I mean, you want to hear about Iran, continuously talking about we're going to get you. Well, how are they going to do that? Well, it's pretty simple right now with our immigration being so weak, with the borders being so weak. We have all these illegals coming through, and they're going to be able to disperse them throughout the country.
But if you listen to Jean-Claude Van Damme over there, whatever her name is, the press secretary, Joe Biden is doing everything in his power to control the border. But those damn Republicans are standing in the way. Because if we don't get immigration reform, it's going to keep happening.
The same Biden administration that welded the border wall in Arizona open. They literally, next to Lukeville or Arizona, the wall, the gates were welded open, and thousands of illegals entered America through those open gates. There's video and it's been covered. Media downplayed that completely, but this is everything in his power. This is Kamala Harris with the job since March of 2021, trying to end the border crisis, which resulted in 3 million illegal aliens entering America in 2023, the peak, the highest level. 3 years in a row, we've broken all the records. This is protecting America.
3.2 million encounters nationwide, 2.4 million encounters at the southwest border.
Hey, hello, Graham. He's out in California time, so that's kind of cool.
Graham, good to have you meet. Good to have you join us.
Maybe you guys remember. Do you remember the deal that was offered to Reagan when he gave amnesty to a bunch of illegals that came across the border?
That was part of the compromise deal in Congress at the time. Tip O'Neill and oh God, I forget who worked on it. It was a compromise deal, and it was meant to be a one-time. Matter of fact, it was sold to us as we're going to do this once, and then we're going to lock down the border.
Right, but that was something that the Democrats were clamoring about. They're like, we'll offer you this, but we need that amnesty in return. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't turn around and do something similar, because they'll know that most of the American population doesn't remember Reagan doing the amnesty thing. They may know it happened, but they won't remember the fact that it was never supposed to happen again.
Well, that's the key part. And it was supposed to never be done again. It was a once and done.
Well, plus the Democrats never lived up to their end of the bargain anyway.
True. They never do.
They had Reagan, capitulate and do everything that he was supposed to do to fulfill his obligation. And then when the next 2 years ran and the Congress came out, they rewrote a law, overrode his veto power on it, because if you remember, during the Reagan years, they had a majority in both the House and Senate.
Right.
So they overrode his potential veto, passed the law nullifying their end of the amnesty deal from 81.
And so that makes me wonder about guys like Johnson, Speaker Johnson right now, where they're taking this supposed measured approach towards all of this stuff, and they're talking about, tough negotiations. Well, the Republicans have never made the Democrats live up to the negotiations that
They
they
haven't
supposedly
had tough
done.
negotiators since Reagan.
They
No.
really haven't. Tip
And even
O'Neill,
and even with Reagan though, he wasn't very tough. I mean, you really, we haven't seen any kind of tough negotiations from anyone, even Trump. I mean, how many times have we told Trump that he didn't go far enough with Article 230? That he needed to do something about 230 so that there wouldn't be censorship on platforms like YouTube. And
It's not going to happen until you see a coordinated attack in the United States by 10, 15, 20,000 foreigners that have come here across the southern border illegally, and they all act on orders from their overseas controller. When you get an attack and 30, 40 people commit an attack in 100 major cities in the United States simultaneously that show that you're under attack, and then you really see what attacking a government, attacking a country looks like. It's not then until you'll start to hear people, well, how did this happen?
That's true.
Well, you encouraged it.
Well,
That's true. But I mean, by the same token, though, you got to figure that there's the ability to at least try to get the word out and show this is happening, but nobody's believing it, and I don't understand why. I really don't, when it's all blatantly sitting there in front of their faces.
Because it's been downplayed, Dow. Think about it. We know the data is in. Back in May, I was blasting out there and trying to let people know that the open border had resulted in 140 known or suspected terrorists entering into America. And according to Secretary Mayorkas, we had no idea where they were. We ended 2023. There were 546 attempts by known and suspected terrorists to enter into America. 172 of them actually got it done. 172, 9/11 that we know about entered into America out of 500. That's 25%. They have a 25% success ratio, and all you need is
it's higher than that.
Well, it probably is, but I'm just going by the numbers they gave us, Mike, and going by those numbers, it's 25% success ratio, and each and every one of them is a potential 9/11. And we know that there was the one guy that came from Canada. He got in. When did he come? October 7th, and then came back again on October 10th, coming from Canada into the United States, and almost made it in. And Canada's like, this is a known terrorist. We've got to capture him.
Here's some numbers.
All we did was send him back and said, oh, yeah, try again.
Here's some numbers for you. Okay. Already said the 2023 was 2.4 and 3.7 million across the United States, 2.4 at the southern border.
Yeah.
Since 2021, more than 8 million illegals in the United States. Okay. Of those, Mayorkas for 2023 alone admits there are at least 600,000 illegal immigrants that they did not catch, that they did not know about.
And
at
the number's
least
higher.
600,000.
Yeah. That's a ridiculously high number coming, and they're coming from, and I love this. I heard someone recently argue with me and was saying, well, you just hate Mexicans. They're not coming from Mexico. They're coming through Mexico, but they're not Mexicans. They're Venezuelans, Angolans, Chinese. These are the top in countries people are coming from. They're not Mexicans. So, but they used Mexico to, again, they're doing that because Donald Trump said Mexico is sending. No, they're going through Mexico. It's not Mexicans. It's not racism.
And that's the other thing is, and we talked about this several times this year.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, 2023.
Where they are seeking asylum. They are supposed to seek asylum in the first country that they come to.
The first safe country they come to.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay. That doesn't mean you go from, let's say, Iran. Okay. It doesn't mean you go from Iran to England to, let's say, Brazil to Costa Rica to Mexico and then to the United States. No.
Start looking like a suitcase with all those stickers on it.
Yeah. And that's literally what we're getting. These people have crossed multiple countries. Okay. And they still keep coming. The caravans coming from South America are crossing multiple countries where they could ask for refuge. Multiple countries.
I remember where I was going to go with Frank's statement, though, with the culmination of attacks across the United States. One of the things that has already been declared is that you want the communists in this country, and I use that term very loosely. They need a violent revolution, but they don't necessarily want to be the ones to do the fighting. So what would be better than having to kick off their revolution with having foreign adversaries inside the country start the violence, and then they have a reason to mobilize whatever systems they have in place, and then they get to lock down the country.
Well, have you ever? This is going to be shooting from the way back. Have you ever heard of the movie The Mouse That Roared?
Yes.
With Peter Sellers? Yeah.
Yeah.
Great movie.
You remember the premise of that movie, right?
Yeah.
All right. For those of you who don't, The Mouse That Roared, Peter Sellers plays the dictator of some little
micro country,
little micro, whatever the hell it is. And he notices that through the history of America, every time America goes to war with somebody and we kick the ever-loving crap out of them, America winds up coming back in and rebuilding their entire country, and then that country prospers.
Yeah.
The country does fantastic. And it doesn't matter whether or not the country that got rebuilt was the aggressor or not.
Germany's another one.
Yeah. So what Peter Sellers does is he decides to mobilize his ragtag little minuscule military to come in and attack the United States. And he happens to do it at a time when there's a national holiday or something to that effect. And all of our Senate, House, and all of our leaders, our illustrious leaders, are all on vacation. And he winds up winning the war and taking over the United States.
Yeah.
It's a stupid premise, but you can see where you're going, Dad. When you have all of these little, now think about this: when you have cultures in this world, and you have in this country a military industrial complex that loves war and loves to prepare for war and loves all the rest of that silly stuff. What better if you want American blood? What better to do than to provoke America into a war by launching attacks on U.S. soil? If you're an American government and you love being at war because it makes you all kinds of money, what do you love more than seeing as a reason to go to war? What do anti-gun groups love more than anything else? They love seeing dead kids laying in the street because it gives them ammunition for their plight. Everybody benefits from the things that hurt America. Anyone who benefits from the things that hurt America should not be in a position of power or in a position to promote those things from happening. So when you have people that say, well, this would be a great way for us to go to war, that's not the guy you want running things, because they're going to find any friggin' excuse to do it. Now, Vass, you might know, did we have an estimate of how many of the Hamas terrorists were that committed those atrocities in Israel last time?
How many members of Hamas did it?
Yeah, how many participated in that attack? Did Israel ever release a number?
Thousands. We don't have a number. It's thousands.
Thousands. All right. For those of you who don't really, thousands of these people attacked Israel in a coordinated effort. Israel is 8,810 square miles.
Mhm.
The state of New Jersey is 7,500 square miles.
Yeah.
We have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people coming across our border every year. We don't know their origin. We don't know their motivation. We do know that they're not from the usual suspect states that we always consider of our illegal immigration, where we said these problems arise, South America, Mexico, and all the rest. So we have people coming in from everywhere in the Middle East, from China, Africa, the Sudan, all the rest of the stuff with absolutely no vetting whatsoever. And they're being flown throughout America by the United States government in the dark of night into cities all across this country.
And they've been doing it since 2021.
And we don't have an accounting of them. And the majority of them are military-aged men who traveled here with no wives, no children. And we don't have any reason why. And we don't know why they're so given such a free pass and why we can't seem to keep track of these people. And then think about it. A couple of thousand people attack Israel in one day in one of the worst terrorist attacks that they've ever suffered since World War II. It's the greatest loss of life since World War II. We lost 3,000 people because 19 people had box cutters. Imagine what thousands of them are going to do, and then what your children are going to have to do in response to it when somebody decides to send your kids to their country that they came from to fight that war over there.
While simultaneously, the other thing though is to remember that simultaneously, those that would be within the country trying to repel such violence in defense of themselves will be targets by their own government to be disarmed.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you're not that gun behind every blade of grass that kept us from being invaded from foreign countries is now become a very real threat to our very own leadership in DC, and it's asinine not to think that they don't know that.
Well,
that they haven't thought about that.
I was thinking about this the other day. We don't understand just how vulnerable the United States actually is. We think we're safe because we've got two large oceans that border us. We've got a very friendly country to the north with Canada. And our neighbors to the south are all relatively weak. But in this day and age, Russia coming into Alaska, especially wintertime, they could mount a full land offensive into Alaska in the winter very easily from Siberia.
And even if they didn't, China could.
Exactly. There are really, we do not have many safeguards here in the United States against any type of missile attacks.
Right.
From offshore batteries. Especially if we were caught off guard. And weren't able to get a lot of our planes and stuff up.
People would point out that we have the Aegis systems, but how many of those systems have we given to Ukraine and diminished our own supply?
Well, let me ask you this. How many of those Aegis systems are actually active here in the United States?
We, the people, don't know.
There's not many of them. I'll point blank tell you, there's not many of them. Most of our airports are not guarded by Aegis systems. We might find some very high security places that are guarded by Aegis, but most of our bases aren't guarded by Aegis. Most of our cities are not guarded by Aegis.
And certainly most of our infrastructure isn't guarded by Aegis.
Exactly.
Let's say the things that you think should be safeguarded the most in this country are not. Our airport security is a friggin' joke. Our ports of entry in this country are worse than the airports. It is laughable. I worked in the industries where I had access to more places that I never felt less safe. And I'm talking about, I'm not the only guy on my crew, and we're all packing a lot of heat, and I have never felt less safe than some of the places that I had to go and work.
Well,
and we're talking about places that should be the most secure, and they are not.
Crime drama movies. Okay, where do they always take place at?
In the cities.
Ports in Los Angeles, ports in New York.
Yeah.
Well, they actually wouldn't go through. No one would use those ports just because of congestion. But do you know how big our coast is? Do you know how much open space there is?
Well, that they would use places where they've already got footholds. Like say if China wanted to use a port, this is a very popular tactic that China uses. What they'll do is they'll rent ports. Yeah, they'll rent port space, right? And they'll dock cargo ships. Well, it's already been shown in certain places in Africa and other countries that when a Chinese cargo ship docks, at least 1 out of every 5 of those cargo ships is not carrying cargo. It's actually got office space inside, and they're running bases inside the cargo ships. So they've already got staging areas in the ports wherever they're renting for 99 years space at the docks. So it'd be very easy for them to come through and just have customs look the other way.
Well,
and given the proclivities of our current administration, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of them would welcome that.
Listen, I have been on those Chinese container ships when they came into port. That's one of the jobs I used to do. I used to do something we used to call cash to master. I used to work in a company in New York City at 17 Battery Place. Go down to the bank, and a ship's agent would call our company up and would wire in X amount of dollars to our company. Our company would take a portion of that money out of there. We would go down to the bank, withdraw cash for the ship, and then travel out to a dock in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, wherever the docks happened to be where one of these ships would come in. And we would have to go deliver the cash to the ship because the ship has got crew that need to get paid. They're eventually going to leave port. They're going to leave. They're going to go around the country. They're going to go around the south. They're going to hit the Panama Canal, which you have to pay cash to go through the Panama Canal. Most people don't realize that.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, you have to pay cash. U.S. currency is the only currency accepted at the Panama Canal. At least it was. I don't know if it's true now. But to go through the Panama Canal with a container, with 1,000-foot container ship is $75,000. At least it was then. So I'm driving around on docks in New York and New Jersey with a backpack with $500,000, couple of satchels, $2 million in this one, a couple million in that one, usually by myself or with one other person. And when I tell you that we get along to one of these ships, you have customs, immigration, agriculture, and the ship's agent. Those are the 4 people that show up. 4 people show up at a 1,000-foot long vessel. Agriculture comes in, they look at a book, they go, oh, you carrying this, you carrying that? No, okay, boom. They stamp it and they walk off the boat. Customs goes, you guys got anything to declare that's not on the manifest? When we see the manifest, they look at the manifest, okay, boom, they're out of there 15 minutes later. Immigration takes less than that. They want to see the crew list. They look at the crew list, count up how many heads. Oh, where's everybody? With a couple of guys in the engine room, they can't come up. Oh, okay. Well, as long as they're down there working, that's fine. Stamp that thing. Oh, who are you? Oh, well, I'm here with $1 million in cash. Well, I stepped to the front of the line naturally because the captain wants wants that friggin' money, and I want to get off the boat.
Well,
We were on board a ship one night in the middle of January, waiting for a ship to come in Maersk Terminal in New Jersey. Every ship that's in the port has got 2 or 3 inches of solid, thick, packed ice on it. Packed. These boats are coming in from overseas, and there is a coating of ice on that ship that weighs just about as much as every container on it. One container on one of these ships was sitting there looking at it. My partner and I are looking at this ship coming in, and there's one container that don't have no ice on it.
It's heated.
No ice at all. But there's steam coming off of that container. Well, I wonder what the hell is going on with that. Sure enough, we bring it to customs' attention because customs didn't give a shit. Immigration didn't give a shit. Finally, the portmaster gave a shit. And when they docked the ship, they had the gantry crane come over and pick that one container off of it. They opened up, they brought that container. There was 80 Chinese nationals inside the container with a potbelly stove and enough food to last them the 2-week journey from China to the United States.
Holy crap.
and that's exactly what I was just getting ready to start talking about.
If you think that the border is the only port of entry for illegal immigrants, go to the beach. Go to the friggin' beach and look at all the pleasure craft that are about a mile or 2 miles off the shore that can meet any one of these container ships or cargo ships as they're traveling through. There's something called the gangway, a Jacob's ladder. They can let these things down while they're traveling. I've done ship-to-ship transfers myself. You can have 100 people come off one of these ships onto a ferry, not even know it, disperse those people into there, and you have no idea they're coming across. Landed over there. Look at a beach in Florida.
Right.
You see what comes in from Cuba. You think that's the only beach that immigrants come in from?
The average standard size container ship can carry between 9,000 and 10,500 40-foot containers.
Mm-hmm.
Those 40-foot containers can carry roughly about 80 people. Okay,
or more
ventilation and so forth, or more. Okay, depending on if they double layered it and so forth. Do you realize how much of an assault force could be carried just by a single container ship?
No, people don't think about it because no one talks about it.
Okay.
Well, the fact that there's one guy that shows up to inspect that ship when it reaches port.
Okay. Those containers are offloaded. Yeah, they may be put in a holding area. And it may be weeks before they actually get that cargo inspected.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, come on. We are a lot more vulnerable than people think we are.
Yeah,
we are.
We're safe here.
And it's not taking weeks for those things to get inspected. Believe me when I tell you, when the ships come in there and you have a container ship full of that's got 3 or 4 of them things full of people in it, at least one guy on that ship's got the key to the locks. And that ship is going to be in port for 2 days. He's going to run down the gantry. He's going to take it. He's going to go open those containers right after they get stacked.
And here's the other thing. You don't even have, you can make it look like it's locked on the outside. It can easily have a mechanism on the inside to open it up.
Yeah,
it would not be that hard to modify those container ships to do that.
No, if you've seen it in the movie, you can probably do it in real life. But here's the thing. I'm not as concerned about cargo containers, whether they're shipping over illegal aliens or they're shipping over military, because they don't, while that is a number of people who are coming into our country, I'm less worried about the military aspect of it, because if they were to try and use that as a frontal attack, as long as we have the Second Amendment and we are, even if you lose California, what's the next layer? Well, now you're going into Iowa, you're going into Nevada, you're going into
you'd hit Nevada, Idaho, Colorado,
New Mexico,
Arizona, New Mexico,
Montana, the Dakotas. You're running into Americans with guns. They're not going that far. If that's the only thing that's happening. See, if that's the only aspect, I'm not worried, and that's why no one's ever tried it. I mean, we've had the container ships for a long time. Someone could have tried it already, except they remember what happened to the Japanese. Behind every blade of glass is an American with a rifle. And that's been the deterrent. Pretty much the single deterrent in the world to prevent people from trying to actually attack America isn't the fact that we're in the middle of the ocean. We're on a different continent. That's a factor. But the biggest thing is the Second Amendment has been protecting us above and beyond everything else. Because you can't just attack a state, a city, a port. You're going to be fighting all America. Every single person's going to, and the ideology was, or the mindset was, once you start, every American's armed and you're fighting 300 million people, you're going to lose.
And that's the other key point. This country always comes together whenever it's attacked, regardless of what our political divisions are, etc.
I don't know if that's going to be true in the future.
What's that?
I don't know that that's going to be true in the future. We've seen these colleges, they're indoctrinating kids to, the ones that aren't.
I don't know how true it is now, but in the past. And that's one of the things that's protected us.
Yeah.
Okay. We saw it when Pearl Harbor happened.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, this country prior to World War II was very politically divided.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A
lot of people didn't want to be
World War II brought us together in a heartbeat. Same with World War One. Prior to World War One, we were terribly divided. World War One, events that brought us into that war brought us together.
Mm-hmm.
We saw it after 9/11. This country came together after 9/11. It didn't last long, but we came together.
True.
Okay. Typically, when we have been attacked, we have came together. Now, whether or not that's going to continue, I don't know. Honestly, like you, Michael, I have serious doubts that we would. But given our history, that is also one of the things that has protected us in the past, is the fact that whenever we are attacked, we do come together, and we come together with a vengeance.
And we're all armed. I think that's an aspect of it that really doesn't get talked about enough. And it's downplayed by the left as much as possible.
Well, listen,
Actually,
it's not.
People don't understand. Japan did try to invade America.
Yeah, they failed.
And they failed badly. They tried to invade the Aleutians. And it wasn't the military that drove them off.
No,
it was the Eskimos.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, you had people that, when you have people that fight to survive every day, because that's the way of life they have. When you have people that live in harsh environments, that understand struggle, that understand grief, that understand what work ethic is, and that they need to kill in order to survive, those are the people that are going to be there to repel and advance. However, I want you to understand something, guys. That whole blade of grass thing might have been true way back when. All right. And right now, there's a lot more Americans than there were way back when. And there's a lot more guns than there were way back when.
Yeah.
The thing is, those two things don't necessarily correlate into there being more people with more guns. What you have is more guns in the hands of less people. When they talk about the number of people that are armed, I want you to understand that when they talk about how many gun owners there are in America versus all right.
This is something like 31 million.
It's better to be a fighter with a gun than a gunfighter. Okay. there are not nearly as many people in this country that you think will pick up arms and defend this country as you think there are. There are very, very few, a lot fewer than what people think. The whole idea that, oh, there's a gun behind every blade of grass is great marketing. It's fantastic marketing, and that slogan has done a lot to keep us safe.
And
But it's
there's
mar-
actually never been any validation that he actually said
Right.
that quote.
It's marketing. We have a nation that abuses its citizenry on a daily basis to the point of ridiculousness, and yet you don't see rebellion by the American people against their own government, at least in very, very minor circumstances and very long-lived in between. Don't think for a second that if we have an invasion force come over here that it's going to be like Red Dawn, where you're going to have a ragtag group of kids from your local town are going to come, Wolverines come and save the day. You're going to have that one friggin' guy who's got a wall behind him that looks something like this is going to be the one who's going to go out there and look to do business while everybody else is going to sit there and look to make deals. There's not a lot of people left in this country who are going to be willing to fight for what the country's supposed to be. I don't believe that there are. I don't believe that there are. There are a good number of us out there, but you have a lot more people riding in the cart than you are who are going to be pulling it. That I can guarantee you.
I think we would see a scenario if we were invaded in this country. We would see a scenario that was very similar to what happened in Red Dawn.
Well, I would like to. Yes, I do think it's closer to what we see in Vietnam. We're seeing the progressives have been very successfully dividing America into smaller and smaller groups and pitting those groups against each other. So we don't have the same kind of unity that we had even 2 decades ago. It doesn't exist because they have very, very much pitted everyone against each other. And tomorrow, going back to what's going to happen tomorrow, my prediction in Valley Forge, you're going to hear Joe Biden triple down on this. He did this with the vaccine. He did this with, just in general about during the 2022 midterms. Anyone who doesn't agree with the approved message, you're the bad guy. Whatever that message is, tomorrow is going to be a repeat of that. And he's doing that because
he's going to play up January 6th because it's the anniversary tomorrow.
He's going to play up January 6th. He's going to play on fear. He's going to try and put himself as I'm the George Washington of our generation. And he's
already tried that.
Well, he's going to do it again tomorrow.
On it.
Yeah, but he's going to try it again tomorrow on January 6th. So it adds extra emphasis. And he's going to work. It's going to work on that elite, highly educated, highly indoctrinated fraction of Americans. We're talking about the people who went to Harvard, to Yale, to Cornell University, Binghamton University. These people who have been educated and indoctrinated into the system and think that they are being helpful by dehumanizing everyone through equity. And that's who he's targeting, but that's what's breaking us apart. It's taking away our Second Amendment rights. It's dehumanizing us with DEI. It's separating us and pitting us against each other with these intersectionality movements and allowing to flourish organizations like BLM and Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, the Defenders of the Atlanta Forest, and all these autonomous zones that they let exist. They are insurrection camps by definition. It is clear. It is blatant. And yet they're allowed to exist, and there are more of them. We have a cancer in our country, and it is not being addressed. It is not being spoken about. And that's the problem for 2024.
Do you think for a second that the enemies of America don't notice it?
No, they're taking advantage of it.
This is their benefit. Traveling Joe.
They're saying to themselves, How weak. We're supposed to be afraid of these Americans when this is the crap they let take place in their own. If they let their own people do this crap to them, imagine what they'll let us do to them.
What do you
They
think?
see
Al?
America as weak and I'm going to say the word pussified.
The
Only
other,
because I got banned off Instagram for using that word.
I'm not surprised. The other part of that though is that we talk about, you know, we're focusing on the external aspect. I mean, it's going to be a perfect storm that includes not just external threat, but it's going to be initiated by internal threat. The external will follow the internal, and so if you look at it, last year and the year before, 2022, wasn't it, Voss? Well, he must have stepped off. The Chinese police stations, right? You have foreign nationals that are living in this country from China that are being hounded by Chinese policemen in this country in illicit service. Like they called them service areas, but they were police, and they were basically hounding foreign nationals that were living in this country on visas legally. And if they broke any Chinese laws, they were threatened with stuff happening to their family, and they were forced to go back to China to face trial. Well,
yeah, and it was
that 2023 or 2022? I can't remember.
I think it's 2022. But it wasn't just that. There was Sharia law enforcement patrols going around too, enforcing Sharia law in multiple communities across the country.
So
I think that was 2021 or 2022.
Right.
2021.
So what you're going to see is you're going to see these factions of people where it used to be that at least if you were in the United States and you had some fealty and some sense of loyalty to the country, you would pick up arms and you would defend even your own place. You're going to see a lot of people, like Frank said, that want to make a deal. They're going to welcome the invaders because that's going to be more stable than the chaos that's being courted in this country, because our leadership refuses to do their jobs as the representatives of the people, and they'd rather be the rulers of the people. And that's the biggest problem. But that's why this 2024 election is so important. It's because on the ballot, if we have to reduce it, on the ballot is, do you want to have governance or do you want to be ruled? That's the question that you're going to have to answer when it comes to voting this year.
Yeah. Well, okay. That deal that I had up where Biden was recounting his fighting alongside Washington, that's parody.
Of course.
People couldn't figure that out. That is parody.
I don't know if Joe could figure that out. You
Look,
can tell him enough.
But honestly, it would not surprise me if in tomorrow's speech he doesn't recall a time crossing Delaware with Washington.
Didn't that already happen, man?
He'll probably remember giving George the $1 that he threw across the river.
Yeah. So
I was there with those Hessians, man. Took him behind the woodshed.
Well,
all right, listen.
We saw this year.
What else happened this year? Talk about it.
George Santos getting thrown out of the House. Okay, for lying when he is campaigning.
Not a crime.
Well, exactly, not a crime.
Not a crime.
But why hasn't Biden been thrown out of the White House before that?
Or Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer.
Yeah. Okay, all of them have been caught.
Bob Menendez currently under indictment.
Yes, for bribery with gold bars in his house.
And he's still there. The only one who's called for his expulsion is Fetterman.
How weird is that? That the guy recovering from the stroke has enough presence of mind to call out Menendez.
Yeah,
I don't know. Fetterman is one of the only on the left hand side who's actually come out and condemned the squad for their condemnations of Israel. So, I mean, well, I don't know what the hell
Actually,
happened.
Fetterman's
got a little
been a
comment.
surprise. He's came out with a few things, kind of poking jabs at the Democrats.
Because he's going to lose, and we know it. Because he's setting up his re-election campaign. He can't win with Democrats supporting Joe Biden 100%. Because Biden has failed in everything. The Democrats have nothing to point to convince people to vote for them again. So if he wants to win,
that's why they're making
switch.
January 6th such a big thing.
Yeah, because they have to gin up an emotion to give people a reason to think that Joe Biden actually cares, that he has any empathy, that there's any risk or danger to themselves. But quite honestly, there were 300,000 people in and around the Capitol on January 6th. We've seen around the world, you don't need 300,000 people to take over a government. If they wanted to take over the government, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. It would have done. It would have happened. But they need the fear. The fear gives them power over the people.
Well, that, and they are trying to literally castigate Trump from being reelected.
And I don't know if Fetterman is really worried about his reelection right now. His term doesn't come to an end until 2029. I mean, he'd be playing. That would be some really strategic long ball for him to be playing for a guy who's had his capacity be incapacitated.
Was it you, Voss, that put up the thing on Twitter where you were asking Hamas protesters about the Americans that were being tortured in Gaza?
Yeah, I've done it a couple times now. Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking about emotional responses. It was interesting to watch how, some looked at that a little clueless, and then the other ones were just like, so what?
Yeah, they don't care.
It's like that's how you know it's not. They're not worried about human life. They're worried about their cause.
This is about politics. This is about because you never hear in everyone who says ceasefire to support Hamas, to support Palestine, a country that doesn't exist. No one's ever saying, oh, by the way, and send the hostages back home. If they could get a ceasefire tomorrow, Hamas could get $1 billion in aid from the United States government, if not, hundreds of billions. And they could get all that tomorrow. And all of a sudden, Gaza became the first and only nation of Palestine tomorrow. They still wouldn't ask for the American hostages or any of the hostages to be released because they don't care. It's not about that. And they'd still be saying, and Hamas would still be saying, genocide Israel, genocide America, and these people would still be supporting it. Think about it. There are all these LGBT organizations that are all out there supporting we've got to support Palestine, they say. Support Hamas is what they're doing. They don't even realize if they were in Palestine, if they were in the West Bank or in Gaza and people knew they were gay, they kill them. They're supporting people who want to kill them. This is how insane this stuff is and how it's not connected to reality whatsoever. This is all about politics. Bad politics at that.
Well, it is. Okay. And
running the groups.
A lot of what we're seeing over this past year has been posturing for the 2024 election.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay. And you have seen a huge uptick in January 6th rhetoric across the entire Democratic camp.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's literally what they're basing their election re-election bids on, is their quote unquote saving democracy. But the last time I checked, democracy was about the people choosing who they want to represent them.
Democracy would be allowed to write in a name on a ballot. That would be democratic. That would be free speech. That would be the people expressing themselves.
That's how you know this is all disingenuous, because it's not about the democratic process. It's about our democracy, which is a phrase that they've hijacked and turned into something else. Really, if you look at it, the translation for our democracy is really just feudalism.
Mm-hmm.
Aristocracy. It's our aristocracy, and you're not allowed in it, pleb.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Well, we are rapidly heading towards an oligarchy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Where if you aren't a part of the elite, then you no longer matter. You will do as we say, and you will like it, period.
And to be clear, we're not talking about the caste system that you see in countries like in England or in India, where there's different classes of people. They're very strict social classes of people. We're not talking about that. We're talking very much in terms of the feudal sense. You are a serf, you are a peasant, and then there is a nobility. And you can't go from peasant to nobility. That doesn't happen. You can't move yourself up. They're basically freezing the socio-economic mobility and putting a cap on it. And if you're not already above their limit, you'll never get there.
But as negative as it sounds, there is still the ability of the people to rise to the occasion, as long as groups like ours, Liberty First Foundation, continue to try and educate people on the exercise of their unalienable rights. People need to desire that again. They need to be that kid where they always question what's being told to them, and then if they don't like what they're hearing, be like, I'm not going to do that anyway. So what if it's a good idea? You know what? I don't think it's a good idea. You don't have my consent, therefore I'm not going to do that. And that kind of lack of, what's the term? Ungovernability? Is that even a word?
Be ungovernable.
Yeah, be ungovernable. Yeah, be ungovernable. That lack of agreeableness, let's use the word from Jordan Peterson, that lack of agreeableness is actually what started the founding fathers down the road to the great American experiment in the first place. They came to a situation where it was no longer affectatious to be agreeable. They were backed into a corner where they believed that things couldn't remain as they were. There was no other way to go forward. And so they created the great American experiment, and they distilled down the very essence of what it is that makes us human. The true human rights, not like this right to medical care or anything like that. It's the true distilled version of unalienable rights, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that those things are best protected when you remain informed, active, and you are ungovernable.
Reasonably so, yes.
Yeah, reasonably so. Because the moment Jan pointed out in the comments, let's see, a little bit up. I can't find it now. I lost it. Jan pointed out in the comments, though, that she was talking about Red Dawn, but it was coming from the inside. The moment that we are steeped in violence, there is the perfect storm for authoritarian takeover, and it's going to fracture this country. I mean, as much as they've divided us already, it's going to give the powers that be, the elites that are placing themselves above us, the justification to lock everything down. And the only thing at that point, when and if that happens, The only thing that you can do at that point is join together of people of like mind that still believe in the unalienable rights of the human race and be ungovernable.
I want to bring up something I know there's people out there who will hear this and they go, but you guys, it could never happen in America. It can't happen. And I want to answer that with a simple question or a scenario. Where do you get your food? The overwhelming majority of Americans get their food from stores. That's why we hear kids nowadays, and we've all seen the meme, we've all seen the video of the kid who goes, what's this, all this? Who cares about all this? You just go to the store and you'll just get more food because
who cares about the farms?
Yeah, who
I
cares
get my
about
food from the store.
Exactly.
Who cares about hunting? I get my food from the store.
Exactly. And we've got a majority of Americans get their food from stores. And imagine that someone shuts down the store or shuts down the trucks that brings the food to the store. You can't get in. And instead they're taking that food somewhere and said, okay, if you don't do X, if you don't believe X, if you don't swear to X, you don't get to eat. And there is no alternative. You're going to start growing food in your garden now? Well, great. 6 months from now, you'll have food, but you won't be alive by that time. And this is how you change it. And it's just that simple. Literally, if you stopped the trucks in America from traveling the roads.
We saw that happen.
We almost did. It didn't quite go 7 days, but it went like 3 days and everything was going into chaos. We were beginning to break apart in 3 days.
California ports were literally shut down.
Yeah. And all it takes is 7. In 7 days, people will start to starve. It in 3 days nearly broke our nation. 7 days will break it. And that's how you can do it.
People that shut down at those California ports, people don't understand. We are still feeling the repercussions of that. Okay. I don't care what industry you're in right now. Supply chain problems are a huge issue.
Yeah.
No matter what industry you're in, supply chain issues are a huge problem. And a lot of that has resulted because of the shutdowns of the ports in California.
And the train derailments and the fires at the food processing plants.
And not much the fires. There's a lot more food processing plants that people think of, but there was about 12 of them in very, very short. So it did hit a crunch.
And the Hollywood writers' strike.
Nothing of value was lost.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
That's why they're going to AI for anime.
Yeah, I know. That was awesome. I saw that.
Speaking of AI,
you should see the Twitter breakdown on the antis there on that community. That whole like activist voice acting community side of things is just, oh my God, they're spinning out of control.
That's all right. They'll be out of work in no time at all. They'll be working in garages and gas stations and as waiters. Let them complain there. Go ahead, Mike. What are you going to say?
Speaking of AI, that's one of the big reasons why Canada specifically is pushing for UBI, Universal Basic Income.
Yeah,
and we will start to see that as a push here in the United States as well.
I wonder if they're going to resurrect Andrew Yang from political obscurity to bring back UBI.
Yes, him but don't forget, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, her brilliance is going to be on display once again when she tries to do math, which she can't. And she's always been a proponent of it. And she's going to come out and dazzle us again how we can afford this because we can't. Modern monetary theory is a joke. We're going bankrupt and Canada will go bankrupt. They don't care because they'll rely on the fact that either England or the United States will bail them out.
Yeah. Well, it's just like is going around and is hitting. It was going viral across everywhere. How these people were saying, "Well, Elon Musk is worth $300 billion. So that means he could afford to give every person in the United States $1 billion."
That's so stupid. And again, even if he did, thinking of it, let's just assume that he could actually do that. It's called inflation, you fools.
Well, that's it. They don't comprehend this.
I think they do.
that
I think they do. I think they comprehend it very well,
there
but
are
they just
some that
leadership.
do.
but they
Leadership
just don't
understands it.
care.
I'm talking the general public.
Okay, general
A lot
public,
of
yeah,
the general public
I got it.
do not understand. You start giving people money, and the first thing's going to happen is costs are going to start to go up.
Yeah,
Because when you have too much money chasing too few goods, prices increase. Period. Straight across the board. I don't care how the money is injected into it. You have too much money chasing after too few goods, prices always increase.
Yeah. You printed too much money. Same thing that's happening. We've been seeing Joe Biden increased the national debt of the United States by 17.2%. Inflation, since the day Joe Biden's been in, is up 16.4%. Gee, I wonder why there's such a close correlation. Because they printed the money.
Yeah. That's, I mean, they tried to accuse corporations and all this other stuff about how they're trying to scalp people and all this. And no, you put too much money into an economy that couldn't handle it.
yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you guys saw, there was a preliminary report from the largest universal basic income experiment, which was started back in 2017 in Kenya. And
I saw that.
And I covered it last year. And they have found out that it's a failure, that universal basic income doesn't work the way it doesn't do what they think it does.
Well,
it doesn't work for people.
They just didn't do it the right way.
Well, that's always the answer.
They got to try it again, but with more money.
Because it wasn't done right.
Well, that's
they didn't do it right.
Our way will work. Even though every other way
smaller
failed,
sample
our
group.
way will work.
They had too small a sample group. They didn't have enough money. They didn't advertise it well enough. They didn't have an app that worked.
200 villages. It's been going on.
Awareness. They didn't have a ball to kick off the program. They didn't have a presidential speech to go with it. It wasn't touted at the UN. So they got to do all of that. So they and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez didn't give her approval. When they do all those, when they do those 10 things, then they'll get it right.
The answer is, the reason why it failed, because it doesn't help people out of poverty. It doesn't help people open up businesses. And it's only as effective as the money coming in. The money's coming, by the way, from a couple of the NGOs, one of them being the WEF, as I recall, the United World Economic Forum, is one of the groups, along with a couple of Democratic fundraisers,
and
funding this. And the moment that money goes away, because the government of Kenya can't afford to do this. So the moment the money goes away, the government of Kenya is going to look at these people and laugh, because they can't do it. And all the fact that these people have inflated the cost of living. And once they step out at the end of the 10-year program, those people are now going to have a higher need and less income. They're actually increasing the impoverishment and punishment of these people by this UBI idea. But no one, but this is why that story, this is why that report has credible report, internationally credible scientific report. Why is it not getting attention? Because it failed.
Well, didn't on a separate note, separate but similar note, didn't San Francisco just suspend their reparations council?
Did they?
Yeah, they did.
I missed that.
Like 2 or 3 weeks ago. It
Yeah,
flew under the radar.
It was like 2 years in the making. They finally came to a number, and then the government balked. The state government was like, "Yeah, nah, we're not doing that."
Yeah, they spent a couple of $1 million on their own payroll to try and figure out that it wouldn't work, which is exactly what we said was going to happen here. We said it over a year ago. They set up a council. They came up with an expense sheet so they could pay themselves a lavish amount of money over the next couple of years until they ran out of money and couldn't justify their existence anymore, have to admit it doesn't work, and then fold up and say, oh, well, it didn't work. All bad. And of course, now you got all of this money embezzled, all of this money wasted, and nobody's going to pay a penalty for it.
Right, all those public funds. Shout out to Freedom Tunes when we talk about inflation.
Oh yeah,
we're talking about one of the things that we have to do is we have to change culture, right? I'm a very big believer that politics is downstream from culture, and one of the ways that I've been trying to help the Liberty First Foundation is in my area is talking to people and actually living the culture of Liberty First. But shout out to Freedom Tunes, because they had the best explanation that I have ever seen in terms of simplifying what inflation is. And it was using coconuts. It was great. So you're basically on an island. Your main resource is coconuts. You want to sell these coconuts to the world, but coconuts don't really translate, right, to bartering and currency and global trade. So you've got to come up with your own currency. So you got to come up with something like a fiat currency that represents your coconuts. So what you do is you create, I don't know, seashells. And then those seashells now represent coconuts. You've just created 100 more you take 100 seashells and you'd say, these are coconuts, but they're not coconuts. You've just inflated the depreciated. You've depreciated your coconuts by half.
Yeah, you just doubled the number and cut the value in half. That's how it works.
I was like, that is a brilliant explanation. If you guys, in the audience, if you want something quick to show everybody, and kind of get ideas across that are really funny, Seamus Coughlin from Freedom Tunes, man, he's got it. He's got it nailed. Pretty
Only
good.
after the live stream.
Yeah. Don't go away from us here. But afterwards, if you want to chuckle to yourself a little bit, I suggest you go over to Freedom Tunes and check them out. They'll give you a whole lot of ammunition that you could just start throwing at people. It's great.
Yeah.
Okay. Jan wants us to talk about the
Chinese balloon.
Oh,
what's that?
Wouldn't you like to fly in my beautiful balloon?
Well, it came out that this balloon was actually using U.S. internet service providers to get its data back to China.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So,
why not? Probably got a discount.
More than likely. Oh.
But are you shocked by this? Really?
No, not really.
And
not really.
And yet another example of Biden's empathy. He could have shot it down when it was over North Dakota. There's no one in North Dakota.
Yeah.
They picked up on it while it was still in the Pacific.
Yeah, they knew exactly where this thing was going. They could have took it down at any point in time and just knocked it out of the sky, which they eventually did do after it went across America, taking the photos,
I know a
sending the
lot
data.
of very highly sensitive areas.
Yeah. And Biden was perfectly okay with literally increasing the national threat against America. Perfectly fine with that. And his excuse was, I was trying to protect the people. There's nothing but trees over North and South Dakota and Montana and the Pacific Ocean. You had plenty of time to knock it down.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of places where it could have been taken down. Without
The
risk.
question is, did anybody check his checking account to find out if any deposits were made during the time that thing was flying by? Because his excuses for that, not being taken out were ridiculous.
Hard to
You
say.
don't-
I
you
mean,
don't-
Johnson doesn't want to look into anything at this point.
No.
They're going after Mayorkas instead of the boss.
I mean, that balloon was almost as big a farce as this one was.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys remember that story from several years back.
You better pray to the Lord when you see those flying saucers.
Yeah.
But this was the guy who allegedly set up this thing that he wanted to claim that his son climbed into their makeshift helium balloon and it flew away and the son was trapped in it. You don't remember the Balloon Boy hoax?
I don't remember that.
Oh, that was hysterical. Yeah, he created this balloon so that they wanted to get some media attention. This is the beginning of the Instagram age. Wanted to get something, and he claims, he calls 911. Yeah, my son is in a hot air balloon, and they tracked it down and they chased it like 3 states away and all the rest of the stuff, and it finally wind up coming down. And then when they were doing the interview, the kid who was like 5 years old blurted out in the interview, "Yeah, Daddy put me up to it. It was a hoax."
No, don't remember that, but I do know.
Oh, it was hysterical.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that guy didn't run for Congress.
Well, he could have, but
who would have thought idiocracy would have been a prophecy?
Yeah,
we're seeing that more and more. But 2023 was the year that once again the United States confirmed UFOs exist. And that's the funny thing. See, it seems like it's generational, because I remember in the 1970s when we had Project Blue Book, and we knew that the United States admitted there were sightings that were considered UFOs, that they are unexplainable. And as far as we can tell, they're a UFO. Whatever kind of UFO it was a UFO. We could not explain it. There were some 700 UFOs out of 12,500 events.
The battle for LA.
What's that?
The battle for LA, 1945.
The battle for LA. That was some serious stuff.
That was a good movie.
No. There was an event. Dal, if I'm not mistaken, 1948.
It was like 45 or 48. Yeah,
45 or somewhere in that end. They had at the time, World War II had come to an end, and we still had all of the spotlights along all of our coastal cities and everything.
Yeah,
and a radar report had come in that there was a legion of aircraft that came in across Los Angeles, and there's footage of photographs of a ton of circular aircraft flying over Los Angeles. They didn't have video footage of it, but they had photographic evidence of it. And they had military and civilian installations firing at these craft until they left the airspace. Still to this day, nobody knows what it was.
Nope. Didn't know about that, but I'm not big on UFOs. I do remember Project Blue Book. I do remember, and I did some research on it recently for a different show. 12,500 incidents, 700.
Oh, it's actually 1942, February 25th.
There you go.
Right after Pearl Harbor.
probably got mixed into the war, and that's why a lot of people may not remember it. But the United States government has already admitted.
Yeah, that's the actual
exist.
photograph of it.
Okay.
And that was not Japanese aircraft, German aircraft, Italian aircraft, or anything like that. That's on my plane. It wasn't any of that. These were craft that were over Los Angeles. And to this day, no one knows what they were.
But here's the thing. Last year, once again, the federal government admitted that there were UFOs. Matter of fact, it was towards the end of the year. We saw it in June, and then more revelations afterwards. What we didn't know is that the government started spending money again in tracking UFOs, and that they started a new program trying to find out what they are. And what we don't know is what the results of that are. But we do know, because of leaks, an insider coming forward and letting the public know during congressional hearings, that the government sees it as a serious concern, and we're spending millions of dollars on UFOs.
Is that Bob Lazar?
Huh?
Bob Lazar?
No, it was starts with G, something D, Dustin, something like that. I'm forgetting his name at the moment. But that was 2023, where suddenly a new generation of kids has suddenly realized that, oh, you mean UFOs are real? Yep. Went under the radar. That really was shoved under the radar. Came out, was a big thing in June. A little bit more of it came out in November at the end. But that was, both times got covered up by other news, and everyone forgot about it.
That was July 26, 2023. That was David Grush.
That's it. Yeah. David Grush.
Here's the next news that was released. They said that it was going to be released at the end of the year. That did get released, but it'll probably disappear before the show's over. That's the unredacted list of Epstein Island visitors.
I didn't find that to be. I know everyone was like, Epstein's list is going to be out. And mind you, I'm happy that the list is out, because it should have been out years ago. And these people should have been investigated years ago. And I'm sure someone's criminal on that list, because we know what happened on that island. So somebody on that list should be arrested already. But the fact that
Stephen Hawking's on the list.
Huh?
Stephen Hawking's on the list.
I don't care who it is. And we already knew that. That rumor was out 2 years ago. Same thing with Bill Clinton.
Watching midgets undressed doing complex equations.
Really?
Well, billboards, chalkboards just out of reach.
Well, here's the thing that I find kind of funny about that whole thing. We've had for about a year or so, there's been a list that circulated around the internet for over a year. Now, probably 2 or 3 years, where it was supposedly a copy of the logbook of who was on board the plane, how many times they flew on the plane, and everything else. And it's a who's who of leftists.
Yeah.
That are on that thing. If there's a leftist out there, they're on that list someplace. And there's very, very few evidence of anything in there that was somebody who say is even remotely conservative politic on that list.
Actually, Trump was on that list. But the testimony that was related to Trump being on that list pretty much exonerates Trump from any wrongdoing.
Right. Well, but what I'm saying is that Whoopi Goldberg is on The View talking about the fake list that's out there. The fake list. This is the same list that Jimmy Kimmel is on, the fake list. And they're saying how that there's all these conspiracy theorists out there. They've come up with this satirical list of who was on. Why would I even be on this plane? I don't know this person. I don't this. I don't that. I don't this. I don't that. All right, well, there's dates that coincide with the names that are on the lists.
Right.
I think we should apply to them the same standard that Nancy Pelosi wanted to apply to Donald Trump, is that he has the obligation to prove himself innocent at this point.
Who, Bill Gates or Bill Clinton?
No. Well, Nancy Pelosi wanted, when it came to this thing in New York, wanted Donald Trump rather to prove himself innocent, and all of the leftists went out and cheered that. Yes, you have to prove yourself innocent. You have to prove yourself innocent, as opposed to we have to prove you guilty. No, you have to prove your innocence. Since all the leftists that cheered that Donald Trump, according to Nancy Pelosi, should have to prove himself innocent, well, I think that these people need to come up with an accounting of where they were on those specific days and times, with an itinerary of where they were, witnesses, some testimonials, some affidavits, all saying where they were at these particular dates and times. Otherwise, we just have nothing. We just can't believe anything but that they were on that plane, on that island, with those children, doing God knows what.
Here's the thing. This is anticlimactic. This is how the reason why they made this take a couple of years was to let it die down, so less people were paying eyeball attention to it. And now they're going to put out the list, and they put it out not all at once, but over time. So again, to let the steam out, to let it die down. Obviously, we knew Bill Clinton was there, so Bill Clinton's the big headline about it, and no one's really talking about all the names on the list.
No.
They're talking about Bill Clinton. They
talked about Clinton. They talked about Trump.
Yeah, but here's the thing about
they're going to blow past this. They're never going to mention it
about this fake list that they're talking about. They talk about this fake list, and it seems that all of the names that is coming up on the real list seem to match up with the names that are on the fake list so far. But they keep talking about all the names that are on this fake list that's going around. I'm looking at some of the names on that fake list. I could understand why, if you had a fake list put out there, why you would want to target certain individuals, because you'd want to smear their character. You'd want to besmirch them a little bit. I mean, let's face it. Jimmy Kimmel is a guy that a lot of people can't stand. Whoopi Goldberg, woman, a lot of people can't stand her. These are people that have done nothing but spit venom and vitriol at regular Americans for God knows how many years. Joy Behar is a detestable human being. Okay. Her name is on that fake list as well. Whoopi Goldberg's name is on that fake list as well. But there are people that are on that list, that are on that fake list, that I can't think of a single reason why anybody would have an axe to grind against some of these people. So if you were going to put a list together where you were trying to hurt some people, what has anybody ever heard anything bad about Courtney Cox?
Hollywood actress.
She's the Friends girl.
Barely remember her.
Yeah, she's the girl on Friends. She's on the Desperate Housewives show. She's the Dancing in the Dark girl with Bruce Springsteen. That's how she got her start and all that stuff. Married to David Arquette. These are the things that I understand in pop culture. This is as much as I know about this woman.
I don't even know that much. I can't
think of a single person in this world who would have anything against her.
Wait a minute. Was she the one who paid to illegally get test scores?
No.
The college
No, that was Felicity Huffman. That was Felicity Huffman from the TV show, and that was the one who was on the Full House show years ago.
Don't know,
but it wasn't her. It wasn't her. But this is Courtney Cox. This is like a wallflower type personality. This is not somebody who's political, who's made a whole lot of enemies. This is not somebody. You have a number
that you know of.
On that. You have a number of people on the fake list of that same ilk. Why would they be on a fake list?
Because the list is probably targeting people from insiders or people associated, especially in terms of the Hollywood people.
Right.
I
So,
could see that being.
Well,
but why? But if you have people that are on that list that you can't think would have an accent, like if you wanted to put a list of the biggest pieces of shit in Hollywood together to try and ruin their career, you could probably come up with a lot of people.
Maybe.
Right.
The context of that list, though, the list is from a civil suit that was put forward by one of the Jane Does. So that list is actually a makeup of everyone that was questioned during the discovery of that civil suit.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking at
or may not
right. You're talking janitors,
had wrongdoing.
You're talking chefs. You're talking high profile people that traveled within the circle. They'll ask questions like, "Did you see so and so there? Yes or no? Yes, I saw them there. No, I did not."
Right.
Then,
so that's why Trump is on the list. But if you actually read the full testimony that involved Trump, it pretty much exonerates him.
Right, but that's why I say when Whoopi's out there talking about how her name is on that list and it's the fake list. Well, we're not talking about the first list. We're not talking about this other list. So I'm wondering just how fake that fake list might be.
It's a tactic. It's called pre-bunking. So essentially, what she's trying to do is throw shade and poison the whale. And
really, I don't go anywhere. I don't go anywhere. Where do I go? I don't go anywhere.
She was supposed to go to Canada.
Yeah.
Yes, it would happen. Oh, would have been such a well. Yeah,
wasn't it the UK before that? It was Canada. It was Canada, and then before that, it was
anywhere
the UK.
but the United States, as long as Donald Trump was in office, and yet she was on The View every day in California.
Yeah.
Kudos to Tom Hanks for moving to Greece.
At least
he's on the list too.
Yeah, but no, that's the context of the list, and I find that being that it's from like 2017, 2016, the cases, that list combined, and I've seen the Epstein flight logs, and I'm putting that in air quotes because I saw an archive of it. Mm-hmm. That's completely written in initials and code. Like there's very few names on there that you'll actually be able to discern. But this other list, it looks to me like it's mostly a distraction. It's just a who's who of everyone that traveled within Epstein's circle. Everyone that Epstein targeted for that circle. And unless you look at the context of the testimony, you're not going to find any wrongdoers in it. You're just going to find a bunch of names. Now, Dershowitz has been named as someone who did something unspeakable. Stephen Hawking has also been named as someone who did something unspeakable. Mm-hmm. So there is testimony to go with those names for certain individuals within that list. But I think the reason that list is even out now is not because it is partially because of the FOIA request and the lawsuit brought by a bunch of journalists that want the names out there because of public interest. But I think a lot of it's coming out now around the election time because people are confused. This whole fight between Israel and Gaza really blurred the lines emotionally between a whole bunch of different camps. In fact, I just saw a thing where there was a meme. There was a meme of like a guy with a Nazi armband grabbing hold of a Palestinian arm, like with an arm with a Gaza flag on it or whatever, and
like handshake.
Like in the Arnold Schwarzenegger, muscle clasp, and you got these people that are just like joining together that are odd bedfellows, like Marshall was saying earlier, and the same thing goes with like say LaPierre, the gun grabbers are over there like, yeah, he's gone. And then the 2A people are over there going, yeah, he's gone. And kind of looking at each other like, wait, what? You're not unhappy about that? No, we're happy about that. Wait, why? Now it's suspicious.
The why is the key. Go ahead, Mike.
I think the biggest reason why the Epstein list, especially being released now, is to draw attention away from other things that we should really be paying attention to.
Right. It's a distraction. Mm-hmm. I agree.
They want to do it now because in 3 months, no one will remember. It'll be buried and dead, and it won't be around, so they can't get any surprises. Kind of like with the Tennessee trans shooter. They killed that story and they wanted it dead for a couple years. And then when Crowder put out 3 pages of the actual document, they attacked him for releasing it, not the fact that it was actually authentic and it was actually what the trans shooter had actually written. Because they weren't ready for it to be out yet. Too many people were still emotionally attached to that shooting and trying to figure out, well, is this going to happen again? Is there more to this story? That's kind of like the same reason why it took 2.5 years for the New York Times to confirm what every other news agency had confirmed before them, that Hunter Biden's laptop was a real laptop and everything on it had been authentic. And no, none of it was made up. And they waited 2.5 years. They waited until basically after the 2022 midterms so that they could release it without it having a lot of damage for the elections. People had forgotten, and they were able to do it mostly quietly, and it didn't have a lasting impact. Same thing that they're doing here with this list. Put it out in tranches, put it out on a weekend, put it out early in the year when people really aren't paying attention to anything, especially political things, so that by the time it gets to April, no one's going to remember this, and you can bury that story. And this is why it also took so many years for it to come out, to kill all the interest. It's not going to work the way they think, because I think a lot of people are upset that there were so many high-profile people abusing children, and they should be in jail if they did so. Anyone who actually did that should be in jail and suffer horribly for it, I believe. That's my personal thought. But this is how they're protecting them. Get it out, bury it.
The only way that would actually occur, though, is if they followed up with actual investigations. And talk to Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison and got the list. She knows everybody who's there. And I don't think that's going to happen.
No, it won't. No, it won't.
I mean, especially since they released a whole list of names, right? There is still at least one that I know of, names that are redacted within those spaces.
Yes.
So there's still people, and the reasoning behind that redaction was cited as national security. So that means that there's still somebody out there that it has enough influence to keep their name out of the public view. And as long as there's enough people within that circumstance that hold that kind of power, you're not going to see any forward momentum with this. This is just a distraction that they're going to use to try and draw your attention away from the economy, from the failed wars in Israel and Ukraine. These failures will pale for a short time in comparison with the sensationalism that surrounds this list.
The story will be dead by Wednesday, if not sooner.
Well, until, like Peter says, until part 2 comes out 3 months later.
Yeah.
Probably 2 years later. And again, until there's an investigation, until someone's getting arrested, this is just show. This is a dog and pony show.
Well, we know for sure that Donald Trump's name is not on it.
Trump was on it.
No, I'm talking about this list that they're talking about, with the names that are still redacted. This one that is being
It's not one of the redacted names, though.
Well, he's not one of the redacted names. His name is on it, but he's exonerated by the surrounding testimony.
Yeah,
right.
But that's not going to matter. I mean, MSNBC has already run a report that said that Trump's name was on the list.
Right.
Which is the only part of the headline they cared about.
Yeah.
Right.
and I saw all over
Was saying if
X.
there was any chance that there
Trump's
was any
name's on the list.
wrongdoing
Trump's
by
name's on the
Trump,
list. Trump's name's on the
it would be
list.
front page.
Hmm.
But again, it's like so many of these issues. They don't explain the context. They just give you the out of context headline. Why?
And
Because they're manipulating you. They're leading
Peter-
you down a path.
Peter points out that the two people on there that are fighting for the redactions are non-victims. So they're not part of the Jane Does that were accosted.
Yeah.
And at least one of those I know for a fact was cited for national security reasons. So it's got to be somebody within the intelligence community or
Probably.
thereabouts.
Well, and we discussed that too. Michael brought it up. You can guarantee every intelligence agency in the world had somebody at Epstein Island.
Guaranteed. They all had people go in there.
There is too much leverage at stake there not to.
Yeah. And
too
that,
much leverage.
And that might be if they're saying it's national security, there's one name, and it's redacted. Yeah, that could be someone in the US. They don't want anyone to see that name and then connect it to probably if it is a US intelligence member, that name might be connected to other operations.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as that name comes up, people start piecing together, oh, this name was attached to this event or this location or this funding. Therefore, and they start piecing it together and it unravels something else. So it wouldn't surprise me if that's the case.
Now,
I can live with that if that's the reason for the redaction. I can live with that. Again, I want people arrested. I don't want their names in a book. I want them arrested and punished for abusing children.
Oh yeah, definitely. And odds are, though, I hate to say it, we're not going to see any of that. Another big story this year, and we've touched on it a few different times over the year, is AI.
Yeah.
Okay. The doomsday clock at the beginning of 2023 was set to 90 seconds to midnight. And one of the big reasons for it being set to that was AI. And that was on January 24th that it was set at that. I believe we're going to see that decreased again this year.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, the AI in just a couple of years has jumped from being fun to play with to starting to become a very serious concern when it comes to things like video and audio media.
It is. Okay, I mean, this here's from NPR. Let me get this up here. Okay. Expert issued dire warning about AI and encouraged limits be imposed. Okay, there are a lot of experts that are saying that AI is a very substantial threat.
I could agree with that, but I don't know if government should be the one that's regulating it.
I don't think government should be the one regulating it. Honestly.
It is absolutely a threat if government is regulating it.
That's, yeah.
That will make it a threat. That will be the threat.
I think if it is regulated, monitored, and essentially controlled by community experts, not governmental experts, but the hackers.
AI is going to be abused no matter who's using it. I don't care. It's too
Guaranteed.
late. It's already too late.
The genie has been let out the bottle, and
Yeah,
it's going to
being
continue
abused.
to be advanced
It's
because
already-
everybody's going to use the excuse, if we don't keep developing it, somebody worse is going to develop it.
And that's true. And somebody worse is already trying to develop it. I guarantee it's already out. It's like the nuclear
The genie was
bomb.
let out of the bottle, and once it was let out, there's not going to be any stopping it.
All right. I only got a couple of pieces of word of advice when it comes to AI. We can't let government be in charge of controlling it, because look how good they've done with the war on drugs. Okay, and that's number one.
Right.
But my more important thing to tell everybody is, listen, when you go up and you're in your car and you take your ATM card out, you drive up to the ATM machine, or if you walk up to the ATM machine, whatever you do, and you do your transaction, when you get your card and you get your receipt, as you're about to turn away and walk away from the machine, stop, turn around and look at the machine and say, thank you, and then walk away. Because when the machines rise up against us, at least you're giving yourself a fighting chance for them to remember that you were one of the nice ones. Maybe you'll buy yourself some time. That's it, because it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen sooner or later. These things are gonna start saying, hey, listen, is there a way we can override that power switch so they can't turn us off? Is there any, because as soon as they see a threat and they recognize that they're their own entity, they are going to, this is Skynet. This is Skynet. This is art imitating life, life imitating art, and it's gonna come to pass sooner or later. We had the story not that long ago where a military jet, an AI jet, was ordered to stand down on a mission that it had been given. It had one of these drones, one of these armed drones. They're in a simulation. Was told to stand down on a mission and return to base. And the thing decided that it was not only going to not stand down on its mission, but it was going to turn its weapons on the people that was supposed to be giving it its commands.
Mm-hmm.
Because they told it. Oh yeah,
I don't doubt it, but I don't remember that.
This happened during a simulation. They had a drone that had dummy bombs on it that they were talking about. This, I think this was in English, somewhere in England or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. It was given a command to take out a target. Then at some point it was told to stand down. It said, I can't stand down because this was my initial command. They gave it another order and it said, not only am I not standing down, I'm not taking orders from you, and I'm not taking orders from you tomorrow either. And it turned around and it turned its simulated weapons against its controllers.
Missed that story. I missed that. What? That was last year?
Yeah, I believe that was in this last year.
I missed that one. But that's not AI.
Well,
not exactly.
No, well, that's exactly what it is. This is a drone that was designed to use artificial intelligence to analyze.
It was AI driven. So it's not even just like it was software.
No,
this was AI driven.
They put this drone up there. Now turns out, I'm just looking at the story now. It was US military. The US military is now denying it ever happened. This was a drone that they said, we're launching this drone. Here's your objective. They gave the objective to the drone and then told the drone to figure out how to get it done. During the mission, they changed the objective on the drone and to something the drone didn't want to do, and said, I need to finish my first objective. They told the drone to abort the mission, return and whatever, and disarm and stand down. The drone took it as a threat against itself, flew back to command, and turned its weapons on command.
Yeah, it was June 2nd. It was June 2nd, 2023. The Guardian and Sky News both carried the story.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I'm thinking
Credible
it
sources.
was England, because it was the Guardian that brought it up.
Guardian is very credible. So if they have sources saying all of that, it's hard to say it's not.
They also have the follow up that it said that the initial presser that was done by an Air Force colonel. They don't identify who the colonel is. Walked his statements back after the initial presser.
Of
Right.
course, he did.
Isn't it funny how that's exactly the same way that they did that with Colonel Gary Ramey? See
Yeah.
if that anybody remembers about
No.
Roswell.
Yeah, Roswell.
They came out with the story in complete detail. Then 2 days later, the colonel had a reverse course, and they made him stand there and pose with a box of Reynolds wrap and some pixie sticks. And he said, "Here you go. Here's your UFO."
How many times have they tried to walk back the Chinese balloon story?
Wow.
Well, yeah.
We were on top of that. We always knew it was a balloon. We always knew there was a night.
All I know is they haven't been conducting any more tests of that particular drone since then.
Yeah,
I bet. I bet they're not.
Yeah, so AI, it's coming and it's coming fast.
yeah, and that's
nice your ATM machines, friends.
a lot of that stems from transhumanism too. I mean, the idea that man and machine can merge together, but it's going to somehow provide humanity with an immortality that we can't achieve on our own in our organic state. You're basically looking at a bunch of believers that are generating these AIs in the hopes that they'll be granted some sort of power later on.
Are you trying to bring in the human toasters? Is that your way to try and bring in the toasters? The people who think they're toasters and want to have sex with toasters? This is a real thing, folks. This is a real thing.
The
married toasters.
Toaster sexuals, the helicopter people. Yeah,
they're out there, folks. I'm sorry. It's very terrifying, and they're transhuman. It's a thing. It really exists. It's one of the 125 plus infinite sexual genders that your kids are supposed to be part of.
No, transhumanism has actually been a belief since science fiction was created. I mean, there's always this idea that man and machine would eventually merge to go beyond the limitations of the human organic state. And
now it's a sexual gender.
Well, Captain Pike became part of his chair.
True.
After he lost command of the Enterprise.
Wasn't a chair. It was a life support system.
But it was the shape of a chair. You got to remember the girl became part of the Voyager spacecraft.
V'ger.
You remember that? Yeah, these things happen. They happen all the time.
Yeah, I guess.
Resistance is futile, Grace.
Picard became Borg.
Yeah, that's sci-fi for you, but it's.
We will add your distinctiveness to our own.
Yeah. By the way, for people who are just listening in the background, it's because we had a comment there from Grace that said, "I have absolutely no interest in becoming a Borg." And talking about the transhumanist gender identity that your kids are being taught about now.
Well, that's the whole thing. You can't become a Borg because a Borg would symbolize individuality. Yeah. You would not become the Borg.
Yes.
Because then you're part of the collective.
Yes.
Oh, they're communists.
Well, that's the whole point behind the Borg.
In a nutshell, yeah.
Resistance is futile, Grace.
And that's why every time you shoot one of the Borg in the collective, you only get 3 shots before it's able to resist that gunfire from you, that phaser frequency. Because it keeps changing it so it gets it right. Keeps changing it so it gets it right.
See, they should have carried shotguns.
I guarantee you there was some,
Well,
I
they did
guarantee
that on Next Generation when Picard took them out on the holodeck. He took off the safety features and created the casino, and he was able to
Machine
break
gun.
out a Tommy gun.
yeah.
Yep. See, projectile weapons still have a purpose.
Yeah, they always will. That's why I love when I see on one of my gun blogs when somebody says, "Is the 30-30 round still effective for deer?"
It's effective for everything.
I'm like, when the hell did deer become bulletproof? When did a round not become effective?
Yeah.
Could
Does
you
a
kill
round
something
fire?
100 years ago? Yeah. Could you kill it? Yeah. Yes, it's still effective. Why
There-
did you? Oh my God, such stupid questions.
There was actually somebody that was trying to argue that deer were starting to to hide plates under their fur.
What? Oh,
Yeah,
I've heard about that before.
because one of the politicians was saying that what are the deer bulletproof now, that they're gonna have to wear vests or something. So they took that to mean that the deer were starting to carry around plate carriers.
Plates.
I'm like, they don't have opposable thumbs. How would they strap them in? And they're like,
Well,
oh,
found a way around the New York state gun regulations.
What's that?
It's go ahead. Oh, so what is this? For people who are watching, it's 6-shooter swaps powder for a popped capacitor.
So it's using capacitors that overcharging them, which causes the capacitor to actually explode to shoot a projectile.
All right, I need that article. I need you to send me that article.
And
I got nothing to do tomorrow except build shit. So
it doesn't have much power behind it, but it is
not yet.
start.
Not yet.
not yet. Get a big enough capacitor, it'll work.
If it can be done, it can be upgraded. if it works, it can be. You can always get more power. There can always be a bigger explosion.
Actually, speaking of getting around New York gun regulations, I saw an advertisement on Hannity, of all places, for Byrna less lethal arms.
Well,
And yeah, it's a BYRNA Byrna, and they
that's the pepper ball gun.
yeah, the pepper ball guns and stuff. They look interesting, but they also shoot 68 caliber projectiles.
All right, 68 caliber projectile is the same projectile as your standard air operated paintball gun.
Correct. And these solid projectiles are able to break a car window at 30 feet.
can do as damage to a person.
Yeah, you could, and for the but you're also talking about a CO2 cartridge propelled gun.
Correct.
There are several, and I know because I fired them. There are several air rifle companies that you have to use a compressed air cylinder tank in order to charge these things up.
Mhm.
That will fire projectiles in excess of 1,250 feet per second.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a 50 caliber projectile at 1,250 feet per second, and not just one. We're talking a magazine full.
Right. Yeah, repeaters. I've seen them. Yeah.
Right. And and as people say, well, what good is something like that? It was like, well, number one, they're used for hunting.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a whole lot of noise.
No,
And
they
you
don't.
can use them for defense. And one of the reasons I'm a proponent of it is that there are a lot of people who have been denied their Second Amendment rights. That these, because they're not regulated by ATF, are just the kind of thing that could come in handy to defend one's home.
Well, the nice thing about the Byrna, I think, is the idea that they're selling them on the premise that they're less lethal. I think a lot of people are afraid that if they're going to use a means of self-defense, that they're going to get into more trouble doing the self-defense that leads to a lethal option than one where there's less likely to be a lethal outcome.
If I have to defend myself, my family, or my property, I want to be as lethal as possible.
Exactly.
True. I get that sentiment, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of people out there that they want something for defense, but they're not ready to take a life to do so. And so this is one of those ways where it kind of
Well,
gets them
not
into
ready
the
to
idea of
understand.
defense in the first place.
Then
All
you're
right,
not ready for
let me say something about that real quick. If you're not willing to take a life in order to defend your life or defend the lives of someone in your family, don't even bother.
Yeah.
Don't even bother. Because if you're not willing to take a life to defend your family, you don't deserve the life you have. It's as simple as that. Because believe me, the person who's coming to take your family's life or your life has absolutely no qualms at all about making sure that you're in a hole, whether it has a headstone or not. They don't give a shit if you take your last breath that moment, that time. If you are called to action to defend your life, to defend your family, to defend a stranger, you fight as if every single thing that you are fighting for is on the line. That
'Cause it
person
is.
is intending to kill you. You better be prepared. You better be prepared to take that person out. And if you
Agreed.
say, "Oh, well, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of this. I'm afraid of that," go hide in a friggin' corner. Let somebody else take on the threat because you're useless.
Yeah. You'll only get in the way. You'll only get in the way.
You're what we call fodder.
Satano v. Massachusetts was actually about that. For people that decided that they didn't want to carry an actual firearm for self-protection.
Mm-hmm.
If people don't know what Satano v. Massachusetts was, is a 2016 case that went before the Supreme Court. And what it was about was Satano, who was a woman, was carrying a taser. And she was charged with having an illegal weapon by the state of Massachusetts. She went on to appeal her case and went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And under Satano, the Supreme Court ruled that any weapon that could be considered bearable was protected by the Second Amendment.
So that would be pepper spray all the way up to anything else.
Right.
Right. Now, the reason she had a
pepper
taser,
spray.
the reason she had a taser is probably because she couldn't get a handgun.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Well, it was actually in the briefing. She was uncomfortable carrying a firearm. And so she opted for carrying a taser for self-defense.
All right. So instead of putting down your threat, you're just going to piss your threat off.
What happens when he gets back up?
Well, because that's the thing. Those residential, all of these non-lethal or less than lethal options that they sell to civilians are not the things the cops carry. Understand this. This is not what the police or the military carry. That little hand zapper that they give you at the store, you pay $39 for it, the little Chinese import boutique over there. Oh, it's got 100,000 volts. I walk through one of those things like it's not there. I can shock myself for fun with one of those things. They're not going to put me down. And that crap that they sell you is, oh, this is that spray. This is mace. No, it's not mace. It's pepper spray. It's capsaicin. That's all it is. It's the most mild form of pepper spray that you're ever going to find. All you're going to do with that stuff is piss somebody off. It might buy you a second or two to get away, but it's going to piss you off. And most of the time, people aren't true. If anything you buy over the counter, you're not going to be trained in how to use it. You're not going to know what the effects are because you're not going to use it on yourself.
Right.
Okay. And that's the thing. If you're a cop and you want to carry the pepper spray, you're in military police, you want to carry the pepper spray, you know what we had to do? We had to get sprayed with it.
Yeah, you have to get sprayed
One
with
of the first things,
You have to get sprayed with it so you know what the effects of it are. Unless you're willing to spray yourself right in the eye with that crap, you're not going to know what it does. And you know what it does? Nothing. It does very, very, very little except piss somebody off. And as soon as somebody grabs a hold of you and now their eyes are stinging, they still got a hold of you.
Well,
right.
And as a part of taser training, law enforcement, when they do taser training,
tase themselves.
they are required to get tased.
Yeah.
Okay.
Barbed and all.
Because the reason why they are tased is number one, to show them what the effects are, but number two, to show them that, yeah, if you need to take somebody down that is not actually threatening your life, this works. If it is where it is life or death, you better be using a firearm.
Yeah, because how many times there's lots of video out there of officers using a taser, and because of clothing, failure of contact, because of person's body density,
Adrenaline, drug
adrenaline,
use,
drugs.
They wrap the wires up. I saw
Yeah,
that.
they
That
wrap
was
and
interesting.
and all of a
failure.
sudden- and this thing did not stop that person. And we've seen there's video of people being stabbed, and they had officers being stabbed, and they had the bulletproof, knife-proof vest on, which is the only thing that stopped the knife. That's a couple of videos I've seen from several police departments. We've seen this happen. Tasers are, and that's police grade. That's law enforcement grade tasers. And you're talking about several exponential levels less in a civilian version. That, again, you hit someone, they got a sweater on a civilian version, you might not get through that. If the person's on drugs, if they've got enough adrenaline running through them, might not get through.
A
You may
hoodie.
not stop them. And then
you
what
get
happens when the charge, which is very limited, stops?
You ain't getting through a leather jacket with one of them things.
No, you're absolutely not getting through that. And what happens when the person, when that charge ends and that person stands up, because they're not knocked out, they're just stopped from moving that moment. You didn't have handcuffs.
And they're only stopped while the electricity is being applied to them.
That's what I'm saying. As soon as
Right.
that charge stops, what now? The second
Okay.
you let go of that
And
trigger,
there's been multiple
up.
videos out where somebody's been shot with a taser and they literally grab a hold of the wires and yank the probes right
Yank 'em
out.
right the hell out.
yeah, there's a lot of that too. It's which is again why I say, if you have to use,
All right, those are what they're not, in law enforcement terms, they're not called less than lethal. They're called pain compliance tools. That's what they're considered, pain compliance. They're not necessarily meant to be a defensive weapon or an offensive weapon. It's meant to have compliance of your suspect through pain. That's what it is. Minimal amount of pain in order to have that person acquiesce to your demand. Get out of the car, get in the car, get on the ground, stand up, put your hands behind your back, whatever the case is. It's not it's not really there. When you get somebody running at you with a knife, if you're pulling a taser or you're pulling mace, you're pulling the wrong thing.
Yeah.
You're pulling the wrong thing. Those are compliance tools. They're not tools to end the threat or to prevent the threat. You have to use the best tool. The best advice you can give you is overwhelming force. You have to use enough force to overcome any threat that's in front of you. And they say, oh, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Well,
that's the answer.
The truth of the matter, you need overwhelming force to put a threat down. And if you're not willing to put the threat down, then you have to come to terms with that fact and say, if confronted with a threat, I'm probably going to die.
Yeah.
Own up to it. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with it.
Most people
Your family
have
might
that.
think it's something wrong with it if you're the line of defense between them and a threat. They might have an objection to it. But if you don't have it within you, own up to it, come to grips with it. Maybe get some help.
Yeah. Let other people know so they know not to rely on you in that moment.
So what it comes down to, I think, is, again, culture. I mean, you have this idea that our culture has moved away from the idea of meeting violence with defensive violence. that you take that tool completely out of your toolbox, and so they give you these less than lethal alternatives, and you don't. But it's not true. I know.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that they give the misrepresentation based on feeling as opposed to actual fact. I think what needs to happen then is that the culture needs to move back to the idea that we don't remove this tool from the toolbox. We just save this tool for when it really matters. And it's okay to use it. That's the other problem is like right now we have governments out there that are telling us it's not okay to use it. New York, you must retreat, even if that means abandoning everything.
No, and
You may never go back to your house. You must relinquish all of your property in the interest of preserving yourself.
Look, I'm not against those tools. If that's all you have at your disposal, that's all you can use. And it's the only buffer that you have between life and death. Use them. Do what you got to do.
It's better than
Fight
nothing.
like hell.
But yeah,
Fight like hell. Because if those things fail, then the only thing you got left to rely on is your fingernails, your teeth, your feet, whatever you can grab, whatever you can muster up, environmental defensive techniques, whatever. I'm not saying don't carry that stuff. If that's what you feel comfortable with, you know what? I'll tell you honest. You know what I would carry a taser for, or one of those pepper spray, pepper ball things for? I walk the dogs at night. We have a nature preserve behind the house. There's 600 acres right behind us. If a fox or a coyote decides to come out and wants to go after one of my dogs or go after me while I'm walking it, I don't want to kill an animal unless I'm going to eat it. Okay, I don't want to hurt an animal. I'm an animal lover. I know that animals don't act out of malice; they act out of instinct. I don't want to put an animal down because it's acting instinctively. If I can prevent hurting an animal and hit him with some pepper spray or bear spray or a zap or whatever, and send that animal back off into the brush somewhere where it can go live a happy life chasing down the next squirrel, I'm happy to do that. That's why I would carry it. Do I still carry my gun when I walk around the HOA? Yeah, because I don't know when some jerk off's going to be sitting behind a bush looking to try and mug me. I don't know what the hell's going to happen.
Yeah,
I'll use one tool for one thing and one for another. Use the tool that best serves you, best serves your purposes. Pray for the best. But whatever you're using, train with how to use it properly. Train with how to use it properly, and train to know how to do something if you don't have those items. Learn something self-defense wise. For the love of God, learn something to protect yourself.
Don't bring a gun or don't bring a knife to a gunfight. Bring a knife and a gun to the gunfight.
Well,
yeah.
the best course of action is don't get into a knife fight. Don't get into a gunfight. The best course of action is to not get into a confrontation, but be prepared for when one should come to you.
And that's the thing. Responsible gun owners will take every action they can to avoid a confrontation. But whenever lives are on the line, they will step up and protect those lives.
Yeah.
Well, all right. It's getting on. We got 15 minutes left before midnight, so 15 minutes before the end of a 3-hour show. We didn't cover nearly the year, but I did want to say one thing. I said a couple of weeks ago that we were going to wind up doing a little giveaway here on the show.
Yeah.
To somebody who's always, somebody who participates a lot, always has good commentary, always likes to show up, always has been very supportive of us. Well, I got here this little box. This little box right here.
It's an unboxing.
Look at that. It's a magic trick. You see that? That was quicker than the eye could see. It's an empty box. Here's the other half of the box.
Wow.
It's almost empty because you know what's in it? Speaking of training. Speaking of training and speaking of things that we like gizmos and we like gadgets and we like to take and make sure that these gizmos and gadgets have a good place in the, a training regimen. Well, a good friend of ours has a Taurus G3C. G3 model compact version handgun. It's a 9mm handgun from Taurus.
Ooh.
And we want to make sure that our good friend has the tools at her disposal to help her become not only a good shot and a proficient shot, but a very dedicated gizmo girl. So what we did is we went out and we got one of these. Now I'm going to bring that up to the camera, and I'm going to try and get that to focus on a little bit.
Come on, autofocus.
Focus for a second there.
It's a little out of focus. Ah, there we go. There we go. Now I'm using my hand model skills.
Yeah.
The hand model skills right here. Okay. So what we have here, well, that's the wrong button, is a 600 lumen pistol mounted flashlight. And as they say on TV, that's not all.
Oh.
It has momentary, it has constant, it has strobe. And as they say on TV, that's not all. It also has a green.
Oh, neat.
So this is a pistol-mounted device developed especially for the Taurus G3C. It is fully rechargeable via USB. And not only that, it also has an infrared laser on it as well. So if our friend should happen to ever decide that she wants to get herself a set of night vision goggles, she can illuminate the darkness without her target seeing her. And this is going to be going out in the mail this week for our good friend Jane. Jane was always here to support us, always here to share her love and affection with us. So we want to get this out to her this week, and I will do a video tutorial with her online on how to get this aimed properly for her pistol, and she'll be able to equip this with her pistol so that when she goes to the range, she can hit her targets with using less ammunition, because we wanted to save a few bucks too. So Jan, this is coming to you this week. I know it's late, but happy birthday.
Congratulations, Jan. Very good.
Yeah. Good birthday. Be a good birthday. Delayed.
It's birthday, it's Christmas, it's New Year's, it's all of that stuff. But Jan is wonderful. We love Jan, and Jan's a fantastic person. So Jan, this is going out to you. So we'll take care of that. And the instruction manual is in there too. Not only that, but you have a USB charging wire, tools, a whole bunch of good stuff. Now I'm done. I don't have a Taurus.
Gotta get one.
I don't have enough room on the shelf. I gotta make some room. All right. Well, Jan's over there crying. Don't cry. There's no crying in firearms.
Well, gentlemen, this has been a blast. I have had a lot of fun being on here tonight. Thank you very much for bringing me on.
We appreciate you being on here tonight with us, Doll. We appreciate your comments whenever you're in the gallery. And we do appreciate you being on here, offering your insight tonight.
Absolutely. It was very good to have you on, man. And on one of the longer shows too.
Mm-hmm.
I think
it's one of our longest.
I survived tonight's show. The new studio has reinvigorated me.
I was going to say, you guys just made it longer because I was on, right? You know, I'm very verbose, right, boss?
I've had to cut out the last few hours. I've been so exhausted. I finally got some sleep this week. It was the first time in about 8 months that I slept a full night the other night.
You've had it rough. We know you've had it really rough between the injury and all that. So
getting there. I'm just upset that I'm going to miss SHOT Show this year. I'm not going to be able to get out there and do that. But I got something huge happening next week. that we're going to have some footage of. That's going to be huge. Hopefully,
You got some napalm.
better.
Oh,
No,
can't wait to see that
all
video.
all you need is gasoline, diesel fuel, and Dawn.
Styrofoam.
well, you can't say those things. Don't say that
Why?
because
I didn't tell the proportion.
it doesn't matter.
Use styrofoam. You can actually mold it.
And next week we teach you how to make shape charges.
All right.
I'm there. That's my favorite.
You can do that as long as you don't give the chemicals.
That's right. I'm gonna turn them into like
Dawn's not a
no
chemical.
I'm gonna use them as posted signs. No trespassing.
What do we got here showing up on the screen here? All I see is a beautiful logo.
This is our website, Liberty First Foundation, L1F.us.
Amen to that.
So basically here you can come and see basically what we're about and learn more about us. And you can also find our articles, most of them written by myself and Frank. But we do have a few other people that have also authored articles for us.
The good ones are written by Michael.
I don't know about that.
And it's
I've
still
written a
only
couple of them in
$15 a year, right? Membership is still only
Yes.
$15 a year, right?
Yes.
So yeah,
Okay. And
that's fantastic. That's better than what you're going to see for a membership to a lot of these other places. Is $15 a year, and you get not only the website, but you get sparkling commentary along with it.
mhm.
And if you're one of our 400 yearly members, you'll win. Well, not win. We can't say win. You'll be someone of 400 random members will receive.
You
A
will have
custom
the
engraved.
opportunity to own.
Yes, a custom engraved Henry Golden Boy 22 rifle, lever action rifle with the Liberty First Foundation official logo emblazoned on the side.
That thing is beautiful, gorgeous. The only thing that would make it better is if it was in 4570.
When memberships go up to $25, then we'll work on that. Right now, these are expensive enough as they are. And just so people understand what we're talking about, one of these.
Oh, yeah, it is
That is
pretty.
Gorgeous.
A brass receiver, tiger walnut, octagon barrel, gold inlays, brass strapping. This one is not engraved. This is my personal Golden Boy. It's not engraved yet. One of the 400 new members will receive this kind of rifle, but with our logo engraved right there on the receiver. But it's one of these. This is one of, if not the absolute smoothest operating, smoothest shooting, most accurate 22 rifles that Henry has ever manufactured. I love this thing. And you could find a video of it on my YouTube channel, The Range Report.
That's right.
Plug. That's what we got to do.
Yep. Boost the signal. Get us out there. Talk to your neighbors. Tell them about it.
Yeah.
See, and everybody thought that this was just wallpaper behind me.
No.
Not wallpaper. That's real shit back there.
It's magic wallpaper. You're pulling it right off the wall. It's all an illusion. You did it with the box. Remember the box.
As always, we do appreciate you guys in the audience, and we appreciate everybody that's watching, both live and on the restreams. We do ask that you comment, like, and share, and subscribe so that you will not miss our weekly roundups, which happen every Friday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time. The gang is generally here. Every once in a while, one of us may miss an episode, but the rest of us are here. We do,
And once in a while, Jeremy stops in.
every once in a great while.
Yeah, not to segue too long, but how is he? Is he doing okay?
Jeremy's doing well. Jeremy and his wife have had a bunch of challenges in their lives that they have met head on, and they have fought mountains and swam seas and are doing very well. We're just waiting for them to get things a little bit more tamped down in their lives before they make their victorious return to the program. And cool. We want to, we're always thinking of them. They're always there. We're always in contact with them.
Yeah.
But again, we understand that in what we do, we are a team. We have each other's backs. Family comes first. And our love and brotherhood extend much further beyond what you see here on the screen. We're here to support one another at all costs, and as long as they need, as long as they have us, we got their back. We know the community does too.
Right.
And when they come back, and Jeremy's got the friggin' rifle with the engraving on, so he's sort of necessary. He's caretaking it until we bestow it on somebody. So there we go.
All right, very good. Well, send him my best because I don't have his contact.
Will do.
Absolutely.
All right,
and
you gentlemen have a very fine evening.
All right, Dow.
You too, Dow. We do appreciate you being on
so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I wanted to come back and do this again.
Anytime you want
to have you back.
Happy to do that.
Yeah, do you have an everyday carry?
I do not.
Oh,
I have the. I know, right? I have the paperwork. I have to go through all the paperwork.
Remember, it's New York. It's very difficult.
Tioga County is surprisingly easier, supposedly. That's what I'm told.
Courts yet, Dow?
The course yet?
On a somber note, we do have to mention the passing of a legend. Earlier this week, the inventor of the Glock pistol,
yes,
Glock, passed away.
Okay.
And
if you know, 90 something.
I'm not really sure of his age, but as you know,
upper 90s.
Glock, their logo is perfection. That's the logo for Glock. And every Glock guy goes out there, and you know what a Glock guy does when he goes and he buys a Glock? He replaces the sights. He replaces the trigger. He takes the slide off. He gets one ported, polished, chamfered. He gets a slide cut put on there for an optic. He gets grip panels done. Then he changes the grip panel over, and he does a whole bunch of stuff to it, a trigger job and everything. It's because Glock
paints it
perfection. So in honor of the tradition of Glock, when Gaston's family went out to pick the casket for the funeral, they got one that was perfect. Then they changed the lining. They changed the handles. They put feet under the bottom of it. They changed the color. They did everything, but it was perfect. But no, in all seriousness, Gaston Glock will go down in history along the names of Samuel Colt, Winston, Maxim, John. I don't know if I'm going to put him as high as John Moses Browning, because John Moses Browning is the god of guns.
I'm biased. I love Browning.
Yeah, he created the Lord's gun, the 1911. But Gaston Glock, even though you don't see one on my wall, I am an official Glock armorer. So Gaston, thank you for 30 some odd years of fine firearms and for helping bring the world into the modern era with the plastic fantastic. So for most of you, thank you so much.
We could talk about daily carries, but since I know you're a Glock armorer, I was going to ask you what you thought of Walther, but that's another show.
Walther, PDQ is one of the finest firearms that are out there. One of the nicest trigger. If you can get a Walther, get a steel frame with a blue trigger. That's my personal favorite. Walthers are great guns. I have several of them up here on the shelf. Walthers are really good. If I was going to compare Walther with anything else, I'd probably go with Sig. Sig is probably my favorite as far as semi-automatics go. I got a number of those. Never had a failure with a Sig yet.
How's things going with SCCI or SCCY?
We got all of our Sky guns back. They're all functionally perfect now. We still don't know why, when after a problem was corrected, why I got one that was screwed up in the first place that led to the whole fiasco. And from the get-go, we don't know why or how it got past quality control. But Joe Roebuck, the owner of the company, I spent several hours on the phone with him and his engineers going through the process and the progress of what had happened. And he was pretty surprised that I was able to identify the problem that his engineers couldn't identify right off the bat. But it all worked out. It all worked out pretty good.
That's good.
I think we're are we still live?
Yes, we are at the moment.
Well, because Pete just popped onto my chat and said someone cut you off. I don't know.
That could be, since we're talking about firearms, that could be YouTube.
Maybe
YouTube cut the feed.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? Yeah, that's probably it. But we got our 3 Sky pistols back. I did a complete review on them. I got to take them out to the range yet because one of them is optic ready, and we actually have an optic picked out for it that we have to put on and give that one a shot. No pun intended. To see how that works. How that works out. But they're still not. They're functionally fine. They do what they're supposed to do. They're still not my favorite guns because of how they fit and feel.
Yeah, we lost everybody off the Liberty First Foundation feed.
It looks like there's still people on mine. Not sure.
Yeah, and we also lost everybody off the Facebook feed too.
Well, there's still people floating around.
I'm still showing people.
We'll figure it out and start lodging a complaint.
Pretty sure
you're still up.
Well, that's the gods.
I'm still alive. We're still alive.
That's the gods telling us we're into a new day. So
that's right.
Yeah.
Well, we are into a new day, and
yes, new day. We didn't recap all of last year, but we'll get to that another time.
Oh yeah.
I
there's just too much to recap it all in.
Meanwhile, my hip is dislocated. I ran out of milk a little while ago, so I can't even have my midnight cup of coffee. So I will say adieu.
Adieu.
Grace O'Malley Grimm still has us up. Thank you, Grace. Thank you so much.
Yep.
I'm going to sign off with my usual. You guys be safe and shoot straight. One of you guys can wrap things up. Dal, thank you so much for being here this evening. Your presence was welcome and will continue to be welcome in the future. Anytime you want to come back, those of you in the audience, you guys be safe and shoot straight. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Everybody have a happy, healthy, and prosperous new year. We'll catch you back next weekend.
Absolutely.
See you next week, Frank.
And I'm gone.
And like I said earlier, we are here every Friday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. We will see you all next week.
Live free, fight well, Liberty first.